Announcements, housekeeping.
We'd like to remind everyone first off that we are sharing a space. So you see the yellow ropes that we have. Please, everyone who's here for Hispanics and Energy, please stay to the front of the room. We are sharing a space today. As you know, you have gone through security this morning. If you are going to leave to the bathroom, please try and keep your bags, as many of your belongings here in this space, or you're going to have to go through the same process. It's going to take a lot longer to get there. There is a bathroom located one floor below us and also 2 floors below us on the ground level. At this time, please take a moment to also silence your phones. We try to have as few interruptions as possible and distractions. Thank you. Once again, I'm going to say the message about your badges. Do not lose them. Keep them above waist level, or if you get spotted by security, you will be escorted off the premises. And we want you to be here with us today. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll get this program started now. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you so much. Señores y señoras, les doy una gran bienvenida al Departamento de Energía de los Estados Unidos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the United States Department of Energy. Me llamo Frederick Pefle. Soy Nica, nacido chilango, inmigrante, creado en Latinoamérica y casado con una boricua quebradillana. Even native speakers need a translation to that one. My name is Fred Pfeffel. My family is from Nicaragua. I was born in Mexico City, raised in Latin America. I'm an immigrant to these United States, and I'm married to a Puerto Rican from a town called Quebradillas. A true specimen, demonstrative of our diversity within the Hispanic diaspora in this great country. To quote the cover of the autobiography of my good friend, Hispanics and Energy Board member Judge Nelson Diaz. Nelson? In the audience today, and from whom you will hear in our opening session tomorrow morning, no soy de aquí ni de allá. Not from here, not from there. But I'm putting my own spin to that. I am from here and from there. Judge, I still got to work on my own book, though. I was appointed by the Biden administration as senior advisor to the general counsel here at the Department of Energy. And I will be one of your MCs at this conference, along with Hispanics and Energy President Jose Perez. Welcome, sir. You had us worried there, Jose, but you made it just on time. And let me now say with confidence that you are attending a very unique event with significant behind-the-scenes efforts by many friends and colleagues, for which I am extremely grateful. This is special, folks. We at DOE are co-hosting this summit with our friends at Hispanics and Energy. As such, we have been very fortunate to have been able to work closely with Jose and his energetic team at Hispanics and Energy and the HIE Board of Directors, along with a special collaboration between 9 different offices and departmental elements within DOE, as well as the White House, the Department of Commerce, the US EPA, and 3 members of the US Senate. 3 Latino senators will be with us to bring you a very meaningful summit in the next day and a half. This summit includes 50-plus high-level speakers from across the public sector, including the US government, local government officials, and utility commissions. Also, of course, the private sector, nonprofit entities, industry trade groups, chambers of commerce, and academia. At the department alone, our collaboration includes the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, Office of the General Counsel, Office of Electricity, Grid Deployment Office, Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains, Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, Office of Energy Justice and Equity, Office of the Secretary, and Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm herself. You will be hearing from officials from all those elements and from Secretary Granholm in our panels and presentations. Speakers as well as attendees have traveled here to Washington from all corners of the country, including California, Florida, Illinois, Texas, Massachusetts, and many other states. There are well over 200 registrations and a virtual audience we are expecting of over 2,000 from across the U.S. Yes, this event is being recorded live, and we have press coverage from national media outlets, print and otherwise. We have a robust 10 sessions planned over the next day and a half, apart from the individual presentations by a number of dignitaries. And the topics range from what top executives from key players of companies such as Constellation Energy, and President Dominguez is here today. Thank you for being here, Joe. And ExxonMobil, and what they have to say about the role of the U.S. Hispanics in the energy sector, what top White House and agency officials have to say about Latino participation in infrastructure transforming energy generation, which is key to fighting the threat of climate change, what top public officials and private sector executives have to say about the important emerging hydrogen industry that could revolutionize the energy sector on a global scale, the role of Hispanic utility commissioners from across the U.S. You'll also hear from White House and DOE officials, as well as from the Office of the Governor of Puerto Rico, and what they are doing to revive the electric grid for our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico, as well as the effort to get 100% renewable generation on the island, the benefits of employee resource groups in the public sector and in corporate America, the state of Hispanic business contracting in the energy sector, and several other topics. And I do want to mention and thank Ron Pierce, the director of our OSTBU office, who was instrumental in making this event happen. Thank you for being here and tuning in, for those of you virtual, and for your kind attention. It is my true pleasure at this moment to hand the mic over to Jose Perez, President and CEO of Hispanics in Energy.
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us. We're really delighted doing this again at the Department of Energy. This is our second time here. We are taking on this issue of energy because the size of the business, it's almost a $4 trillion business. When we take a look at it, the number of Latinos and Hispanics that are part of it is very limited. And so when we created this group in Sacramento, there was 4 organizers, and now we're almost 11,000 people across the country, and we operate in almost 23 states. I'm sorry, 24. And our mission is real simple, is how do we get the 63 million people, Latinos, Hispanics in the United States, to be engaged in energy. And so we broke that area for corporate governance, boards of directors, CEOs, C-suite, contractors, Hispanic-owned businesses doing business in the energy sector. 700 or so energy companies in the United States, we only have 12 Latino CEOs. And so I guess the one way to look at it is that when we started this thing, we didn't have any, and now we got 12, but there's 2,700, and we're 20% of the population. So you can see the opportunity is just really vast, and who knows, maybe in the audience we have some future CEOs. And so, but that's what we try to do, is we do this through advocacy. We work with our friends in policy, we work with the Department of Energy, we work with utility commissioners, and with industry leaders. And we work with all the industry, all sectors. And everyone from the American petroleum industry to SEPA to SIA to all of them, everybody's part of us. And you'll get a chance to meet a lot of these industry leaders today and through tomorrow. And one of the key areas, obviously, has been to develop strategies. How do we go from being very limited numbers to being adequate numbers, where we're at 20% of the proportionality? And so for the business community, what we've done is we've aligned with the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we partner with the Hispanic chambers, not only at the national level, but at the state level and at the local level. And you'll see several of them participating in our activities. And the reason for that is that there's some energy sources that, they only do like 1% Hispanic businesses. And again, in some states like California, we're 40%, Texas, we're 40%. And so these numbers just don't, there's something wrong with this. And so we try to examine what's causing that, work with the chambers, and come up with some solutions. The other area that's very significant for us is workforce. And what we've learned is that energy STEM, those occupations, are the ones that lead to the pool of people that are drawn to become members of the C-suite and the CEOs. But if you look at the number of Latinos that are in that space, very limited numbers. So we came up with some strategies working with a group called HIE, the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, and they represent 572 Hispanic serving institutions around the country. And that group is really very significant because they are educating 5 million Latino kids every year. And so it's really important for us to engage. And when we look at, how are we doing in this particular arena, we find that very few industry people actually partner with our Hispanic serving institutions. So a lot of this is really connected. And I just want to pause a little bit and recognize the person that make the relationship between the federal government and the Hispanic serving institutions a reality, and that's our very own Vice Chair, Judge Nelson Diaz, who's here with us. And because of the leadership he showed when he was in government, these new partnerships started. Now, are we where we want to be? No, we got a lot of work to do. And then finally, on the C-suite corporate governance, again, Judge Nelson Diaz has been very proactive in this arena. He's our conscience as it relates to these issues. He not only is an incredible mentor, but he also sat on the board of directors for Exelon, which is one of the largest corporations in the United States. And so half as much now. And so and Joe's got the other half. And so, but anyway, we have him as kind of our guide, if you will, because he's been to the top. He knows how to maneuver things, and we're very happy that he's been part of us. He shows a lot of passion in what we do with our initiative, and so. But these strategies are the ones that are working for us right now. So we're building relationships, and thanks to Maria Tamburi, who's here with Dominion Energy, they created an incredible relationship with their Hispanic serving institutions, made an investment of $2 million. And so, we have to be thinking in ways of, okay, so what do we got to do to get our kids, to have better opportunities in the future? And it really is through education. That is one of the most important things that we have to accomplish in order for us to achieve our goal. And then finally, on corporate governance, we just got to build our Latinos who are already working in the energy sector. And so you're going to hear some interesting strategies that are being employed by companies and public entities to try to develop that talent and give them the opportunities to rise to the executive levels in their organization. And those are really key activities. So what can you do? Well, if you're interested in helping us out, you can always visit our webpage, HispanicsinEnergy.com, and take a look at all the things that we're working on. We'll be coming to a community near you, because we do a lot of things around the country. And so and what you can do is get involved, become a member and get engaged. And to that, again, I want to pay tribute to our good friend Maria Tamburi, because she organized our first state chapter, the Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry, Hispanics in Energy. And so just happened just recently. And so we're very delighted about that. We'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow during the program. But anyway, I'm really happy with the team that we have. We're very passionate. We're a very small group, but as you can see, we're networking and live streaming this around the country. We have a lot of Latino groups that are checking us out right now. They're listening to this program, and they're trying to figure out how they can take some of these ideas and localize them. Because at the end of the day, if we're not moving as a community in a cohesive manner, it's going to be really tough to achieve those goals. And so anyway, you can't get all this done without some really good leadership. And so I met this fella, years ago. He was a senior vice president at Exelon at the time, in charge of government affairs. And we were in Portland at a NARUC conference many years ago. And I told, his name is Joe. And I go, Joe, I got this idea. What do you think? He says, hey, it's a great idea. Let's figure it out. And so then we started pulling in some of the utility commissioners, and they said, hey, we need to go ahead and get this moving. And so over the years, he's become a CEO of one of the Fortune 100 companies in the United States, and he is now the chairman of our board of directors, and that's none other than Joseph Dominguez from Constellation. And Joseph, would you come up and say some remarks?
So I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to introduce Senator Padilla, and he's en route. They're very busy, but I got a note just before I came up here that says, Padilla en route, stall. So I'm going to speak very slowly. No, hey, it's so nice to be back here at the department for the second year. The partnership we have with the department is spectacular, and it's just a vivid illustration of their mantra to create opportunities for all Americans. And I just want to say to the folks at the department, under Secretary Granholm's leadership, the transformation here has just been palpable, and the vision, the involvement in the future of American energy that the department has had has just been incredible. You have turned talk into walk, and the results have been breathtaking. So thank you for your public service. Thanks for hosting us. On behalf of everybody, just thank you very much. Just another special thanks to Fred and Jose. I don't know if you've ever tried to put something together like this, and we have CEOs here. We've got, as Fred said, 3 U.S. senators here. We've got a lot of policymakers and thought leaders, and getting everybody, if you've ever organized a birthday party, you know it's hard, right? But organizing something like this in the nation's capital with everybody so busy and the constant changes to the schedules is remarkable. And I know that not from having lived it, but from having woken up in the morning and seeing text messages and emails from Jose and Fred in the middle of the night where they're scrambling to put this together. And I know you guys literally have been burning the midnight oil to get this done. So thank you guys very much, and the entirety of the staff. It is incredible what Jose has built this organization into. And he is exaggerating when he says the team is small. It's really small. So I always say, if there's any opportunity for you to volunteer in the organization and be a part of what we're doing, the need is always greater than the hands we have to do the work, and it just makes a powerful difference. Today, we're all gathered here, but this is being televised live to so many people, literally thousands of people around the country. See the presentation we're going to have over the next couple days. And Jose does this not only here, but he does these forums in a number of different places. Our message is getting out there. And our message isn't just about the numbers. It starts with the statistics. 63 million Americans, of course, that's all true. The youth of the Latino workforce is a powerful thing, and we could represent that numerically. But our case goes far beyond the statistics. It's the talent, it's the passion, it's the capability that Latinos have. Let me just be absolutely clear about this. what is good for Latinos is good for America. Latinos are this generation's exceptional Americans, and for us to succeed as a nation, we have to bring more Latinos into this business. It's booming. I'll tell you a little bit about my company and then some of the daunting statistics that we're all looking for. As Jose said, we were part of Exelon. Exelon is one of the largest utility companies in the country, and it had both utilities that served about 10 million folks, and then it had a generation business that was called Exelon Generation that owned some of the largest nuclear plants around the country. So we spun out 2 years ago. We just celebrated our anniversary, in fact, just a week ago. 2 years ago, I became the CEO of this company that spun out, smaller piece of Exelon, and we were, relatively speaking, about a third of the size of Exelon when we launched. Well, you know, the power of clean energy and the things that we've been doing, we've had a really wonderful run. We started out as the 23rd largest company in the energy complex, and today, as I speak to you, we're number 4. We started out, I'm going to tell you the secret sauce in a second, but we started out, again, a third of the size of Exelon. We overtook Exelon in terms of market cap in about a year and a half in. Our stock price went from the 40s to, I think, not that I look at it every second, but 166.23 or something like that. No, and that's great, and it's remarkable. It's always good to make money for owners, but it's what we're doing with it that excites me the most. We are the largest clean energy company in America now in terms of the megawatts we produce. In terms of nuclear power, there are about 93 reactors in the country. We own and operate about 25 of them. So we're the largest nuclear operator that isn't a nation-state operator in the world at this point. We do wind, we do solar energy, natural gas fire generation, because we need all of these pieces to fit together. And then we couple that with the largest customer-facing organization. We serve energy and natural gas to about 3/4 of the Fortune 100 in the country. And the success of the company has been about our people. Look, we've got great assets, but there's a lot of people that run nuclear power plants, and we've got a great retail sales team, and a lot of people do. But what's distinguished us is the passion and, you know, the talent of our team. We started out 13,000 strong, and under Susie Katansky's head of our HR is here. Susie hired 2,500. This is for a company of 13,000 people, but this is the way the industry is moving. For a company of 13,000 people to hire 2,500 in the middle of a time where people are saying, God, it's really hard to hire people, and it is. She's brought incredible talent to the organization. A lot of women and people of color have come in, and they will lead us through this next phase. Let me give you some sense of dimensionality. At this moment in time, we're dealing with the climate crisis, and it's a crisis that we're all confronting and we're seeing the effects of. 100-degree water temperatures around Florida this past summer. I mean, these are astounding things that we're seeing, and just about every part of the country is touched by it. We have to decarbonize. But we're also seeing a movement in industry towards electrification. Transportation is electrifying, and the data center stuff, Maria's here, and she could tell you firsthand because she is kind of in the epicenter of where the cloud lives. Her utility has been handling that. But to give you some, and these are just numbers that'll give you some sense of dimensionality. Historically at Exelon, the largest load, and in our business we call demand load, was the big steel mills in northern Illinois. And those things would draw about 150 megawatts of power. Well, about 10 years ago, data centers were drawing about 10 megawatts of power. Today, they average 100 megawatts of power and are quickly ramping to 1,000 megawatts of power. Enormous power consumption. Our analytics at Constellation tell us that, and we talk about electric vehicles all the time, right? We talk about powering fleets of cars, trucks, and buses with electricity. Well, you know what? In our analytics, data center power consumption is going to be 7 times larger than powering the transportation sector with electricity. Enormous. 24/7 constant power demands. We're talking about, I told you the size of our company. We're the 3rd largest power producer in the country. We're the largest clean energy producer. We actually sell more power than we produce, so the size of our commercial business is also enormous. And yet one customer, Microsoft, around the world, uses more power than we sell to all the thousands and thousands of commercial and industrial and millions of residential customers we have. One customer. And we know, in order to be successful, America needs to lead this data-driven economy, right? AI and all of these capabilities are as important for our economy as they are for our national security to get it right. And all of that is going to require energy. And you could say, well, Joe, we've had other eras where we've grown energy consumption quite rapidly, and you would be absolutely right. We have. During the time of refrigeration and economic growth in the 50s and 60s coming out of World War II, we indeed had great load growth. But we were doing all of that with fossil fuels and then later with the advent of nuclear energy. For the first time, we're going to do that largely with resources that operate intermittently, right? Wind and solar. And we're going to have to work in storage and these other capabilities. The challenges of operating the grid are going to go from kindergarten to a PhD program in the next 30 years. The people power, the talent we're going to need in this industry is going to be unlike anything because it is a challenge, unlike any other time, to decarbonize the world, and the consequences of failure are catastrophic. We have to be able to get that done. So look, we come here and we think about this from the perspective of what could we do to create opportunities for Latinos. We are the generation of American exceptionalism now, Latino style. And we need to bring that energy and that capability together. So Jose has created for you an agenda that gives you the pieces that we all need, right? The education, the opportunity to hear from policymakers and business leaders about what they're thinking and doing in their own businesses. But just as important as all of that is bringing us together to have a conversation about how we help each other, how we facilitate contacts, how we help our community see the opportunities that are being created, and how we bring others along. Because, you know, like many of you, I'm the child of immigrants. Immigrants who came here. There's a Cuban expression of that when some of the Cubans came here, they came with one hand in front and one hand in back, right? And we all know what that expression means, right? Somebody was, I had a funny experience the other day where somebody had heard me say that, and they thought that it was an expression about how we were carrying the suitcases. I said, no, there's no suitcases, okay? There's no suitcases. This is like people came here with nothing. And so look, this lift that we're talking about next, this involvement of our community, is small potatoes. What I've done in my life is, you know, tiny compared to my parents leaving everything they had with nothing and coming here. I always feel small. But that smallness I will fuel, or that hole that I will fuel by doing things for our community. Hopefully you feel the same way. But connect. There's a thing about all of us. We want to assimilate into this culture. We want to be exceptional Americans. We're proud of this country and all of that. But there has to be an element of that that is tethered back to the DNA that runs through our veins and this common need to give back to the people who look just like our mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, right? That's what Jose is driven by. That's what Nelson Diaz, my mentor, is driven by. That is what the great people that came in front of us are driven by. So I hope we approach this with that spirit, and you all connect, and you look out for each other. There's going to be a great opportunities because you're talented enough to earn the opportunities, and the people that are watching us are some of the most exceptional there are here in this country. But connecting the dots and putting them in the seats is a whole other deal. That's what HIE is about. And if you could help, if I could return to the top of this, and if you could help support that mission by becoming involved with Jose and the team, we would welcome it. We have a wonderful board. If I can, let me just have you guys stand up. Nelson, you. This is it, folks. This is the horsepower we have. We need more of it, and we need more of the passion you could bring. So get yourself involved. So, look, I'm out of my stalling capability. I could probably talk about the grid and power forever, but I'm not sure you want that. Is on his way? All right. Do you have any questions about how you could help this organization? Yes, please. Yeah.
They have about 7,000 windmills running, and we have a grand total of about 11. Where do you see that? Is your company getting into that?
Hey, Rudy. Rudy Garza, CEO of CPS Energy, by the way, just came in. You're going to hear from him in a fireside chat. This guy's shaking. Ready to go? Sure. The question is about wind energy, in particular offshore wind energy. Is Constellation involved? Where do I see the future of that? The Europeans have been able to do quite a bit with that, and that's all true. I think offshore wind has taken a few body blows recently. I think some of the supply chain issues that came out of COVID have caused the companies that once won the bids for a lot of the development in the Mid-Atlantic to back up on their numbers and ask for more money, and that has created some upheaval. A number of the projects are still going forward. I think it's a necessary piece of the puzzle. I think the challenge right now is how are we going to do this without fossil fuels? I mean, if we're trying to really get to net zero by 2050, and think about our business as you start building something today and it takes 7-8 years to build it, then we're going to have to triple the amount of clean energy that we produce and solve this problem of electric reliability with something that's more reliable. And offshore wind runs at a frequency that makes it quite reliable, not as reliable as a nuclear plant, but as close as any renewable is going to be to having the capacity factors of fossil and nuclear. So I absolutely think we're going to need to do it. To answer your question, I think we're going to have to take a deep breath on the costs. I think we initially thought the cost would be about $100, $110 a megawatt. Some of the more recent projections I'm seeing put that cost at $150 to maybe, if you want to back that up with storage, that makes it look like a nuclear plant, over $250 a megawatt. And this transformation is going to cost some money. And I think offshore wind here is getting caught up in the same thing that I think, quite honestly, some of the utilities are getting caught up with. There's a great story about the energy transformation, but as a friend of mine said the other day, there's also a risk that politicians are ordering the dinner and not necessarily figuring out who's going to pay the check. We've got to figure out how to make this all work. And I think the offshore wind business is caught up. In terms of our own involvement, Certainly don't have any opposition to doing it, but at this point, it's probably lower in terms of our capital priorities, and it's not really Constellation's experience base. Are we ready to go then? Great. Well, I see Senator Padilla is here. Yes.
I'd like to see how they determine how we can make money in terms of the small business opportunity. You're in the big business. You're in the Fortune 10 or 20 right now these days, but most of us are not. We lost the .com opportunity for Latinos to make money, and the base of why I'm interested in this is so that there be a redistribution of opportunities for the Latinos. Where can they go? I mean, we've got programs at Energy. We've got all kinds of programs at SBA and so forth. I still don't see anybody who is really getting into the action of starting a business and developing a business.
Nelson, I think the missing piece here is, first, this group being focused on education about opportunities is great, but there's not a lot of tailored information to the Latino community about what's going on in the energy sector and where the opportunities exist. So we're trying to fill that niche a little bit. I guess the quick piece of advice I would give to small business owners is every one of these companies that is in the sector, when we were 23, all 22 in front of us and a bunch behind us, had within their supply chain organizations people who were focused entirely on creating opportunities for businesses owned by women, people of color, and veterans. I find for some reason that the Latino community doesn't always access those channels, but it's available on websites. Call the chief supply officers, get your name in front of them. Maria will tell you that everybody is working to find. So there's just a little bit of a mismatch of the information and where to go and get it, but every one of these companies is trying to develop that supply chain. We have a very important person here, one of the heaviest hitters. Senator Padilla is here. I think many of you were here last year, and he was so generous with his time and sat with us last year. And I will do a scant introduction just because, for the sake of time, I really want to get him up here. But story that we were talking about, right? The son of immigrants, right? A mother and father who worked hard jobs but valued education. And I can't imagine wherever they are, if they're still with us or if they're looking down on us, they can't but see the senator with tremendous admiration and pride, as we all do. He has become a leader in the U.S. Senate on the issues we talked about: climate, energy, how we're going to get there and provide reliable and affordable power to Americans, American businesses, and families. And so here we begin with one of the people on the front line of these issues and one of the great thought leaders of America. Please join me in welcoming to the podium. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Good, is it afternoon officially? Yes, by an hour and a half, wow. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you once again. A little bit more elbow room here than the auditorium we were in last year, so I like it. That means we're growing. We need more space. Joseph, appreciate the introduction and your leadership here with Hispanics in energy. Certainly thank and welcome all of you who are here in person, and want to do the wave to everybody on the live stream watching from home or their office or even their car these days, right? If you have a phone or a tablet, you can be anywhere in the world tuning in. But I wouldn't miss this because we continue to be committed to the cause of increasing Latino representation in the energy sector. It's hard to believe that it's been about a year since we were last together, since I was last with you. But as we can arguably say every year, so much has happened in the last 12 months. And I'll begin by some important progress being made in my home state of California. On the energy front, we're proud to have secured over $1 billion from the Department of Energy to establish a groundbreaking hydrogen hub in California. Right, so just as a recognition, I'll take that applause every chance I get. So in addition to all the work we've been doing over the years in the different areas of energy, now hydrogen is beginning to boom, and we want to make sure that we are there as well. Because in California, we've seen the devastating impacts of climate change. I often tell my colleagues, California is Exhibit A. We can talk about persistent drought and rising temperatures in the summer and what it means for water supply, or we can talk about atmospheric rivers. We had about 30 atmospheric rivers pound the state from north to south last year, and we're a couple of devastating storms into this year as well, which just reminds us that there's always more work to do. Now in Washington, I'll spare you the drama that House Republicans have been causing us and focus more on some of the positive progress that we've seen, not just thanks to the work of the Senate, but thanks to the Biden-Harris administration and the work of Secretary Granholm. Now, when I spoke to you last year, she was sitting in the front row. I had a chance to speak to her and convey some messages directly. I understand she'll be here tomorrow because she's traveling today. But together we've helped distribute billions of dollars for clean energy projects around the country. In the Senate, another point of personal privilege. When I was addressed to you last year, I was a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee, and that's still the case, but there's been a little bit of a committee shuffle. I've also now joined the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. So I'm able to raise these issues and advance the dialogue from both of those perches. But for those of you who have known for a while, you'll know that this is not exactly new territory for me. Prior to serving in the Senate, I was California Secretary of State, but prior to that, I served in the California State Senate, where for 6 years, I chaired the committee that oversaw energy, utilities, and telecommunications. That's where I first started working with Hispanics in energy. And so, yes, throughout my time in public service, I've continued to see that Latino communities and other communities of color, disadvantaged communities, lower income communities are the ones on the front lines. We're the ones disproportionately harmed by climate change. That's just the reality. Whether it's communities that are living next to the highways or the ports and have no choice but to breathe air that is high in emissions and toxic pollution, or whether it's communities who have to work harder to get federal resources to recover from an atmospheric river or other type of storm or natural disaster. And it's part of the inequity that we see in representation is because people of color with these very important lived experiences are not always represented on the agencies and bodies and commissions and boards that make the important decisions when it comes to energy. We haven't had proportional representation in Congress or at the agency level either. But as a nation, that's beginning to change. And I'll explain it by yet another analogy. In addition to the committees I've already mentioned, I'm also a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Working with my colleagues on that committee and the Biden-Harris administration, we have had a huge amount of success in the number of judicial confirmations that have been processed in the last few years. And it's not just that we're celebrating over 170 judges that have been confirmed since President Biden came into office. More than 110 of them are people of color. Out of 170, more than 100 are women. And the Latinos that have been confirmed in these last few years make up more than a third of all the Latino judges on the federal bench across the country. So we're making tremendous progress in achieving what we like to say is a federal judiciary that better reflects the diverse country that it serves. And so I share that with you because if we can and are doing it in the judiciary, we can and must do it for the energy sector as well. We must do it for the energy sector, we must do it in all areas of tech, and we need to do it in the areas of STEM educational institutions, right? Because that leads not just to education, but the workforce of tomorrow challenge. And it's exactly what Hispanics in Energy has been championing for so long. And the truth is, there's no better time to make significant progress than now to uplift Latinos in this space. I mean, look at the CHIPS and Science Act, creating new jobs, not just in STEM areas, but also in manufacturing. Look at the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the largest investment in history to combat the climate crisis. Look at the bipartisan infrastructure law. I know you're talking about it, the historic investment in our nation's infrastructure, with around $1 trillion going to transportation infrastructure, power infrastructure, electric vehicles, the electrification of our public transit systems, and so much more. These are all opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. And I mentioned hydrogen earlier. We're also helping states like California, but many others, secure funding for projects like ARCHES, which is California's hydrogen hub. Not only will this project help reduce emissions and protect communities of color, right, doing it in an equitable way, but it's also going to create opportunities for Latino-owned businesses in a flourishing hydrogen market. There's never been a better time to increase our participation in the STEM workforce as well, but we have to meet this moment. This opportunity isn't going to last forever. We're primed to take advantage of it now. You know, yet another hat that I wear in the Senate is I'm a co-founder and serve as a co-chair of the Senate Hispanic Serving Institutions Caucus, HSIs, where we're working to increase funding not just for HSIs across the country, but to provide meaningful opportunities for both public and private hands-on research for university students because they are the STEM leaders of tomorrow. And we have to make sure that they have the equipment, the technology, and the faculty to learn and to succeed. And one way to do that is happening right now in this building, where we're working with the Department of Energy to link them directly with HSIs to continue to build our workforce and increase the Latinos' participation in STEM. And it's not just about getting their commitments, because you hear commitments all the time, right? We come to conferences, we hear from agencies' heads, and we promise to work with you. We're going to work together. We have pledge, we have MOUs, we have agreements. What I love about Hispanics in Energy is beyond the commitments, let's make sure we're holding people accountable. And not just the Department of Energy, but the entirety of federal government to live up to those commitments, because it's living up to the standards that we are setting. And And let me be even more blunt about it. It is not just because it's in our self-interest. It's because it's in the interest of our national energy and security policy. This makes us a stronger nation. So thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for insisting. Thank you for lobbying. Thank you for pushing. Thank you for everything that you're doing each and every day to advance the cause and creating the model and opportunities for future generations, because there's just so much at stake. Thank you again for having me, and I hope we're getting the program back on track here. My apologies for being a little bit late, but thank you again so very, very much.
Thank you so very much. Senator Padilla, another round of applause. Now we would like to welcome our first session. You are going to have the treat of hearing from 3 high-level executives of outstanding energy companies in the United States to address challenges and opportunities for the Hispanic community in the energy transformation. And our moderator, Jose.
Absolutely. If I can have the panel join me. Yeah. Unless you want me to
Missing anybody?
Yeah, no, just.
Okay.
Yeah. We have, one person is going to be on virtual. Nick, is he on? Okay, good. I can't see the screen, so somebody's going to have to help me with that. So, welcome everybody. We're really delighted to bring some very interesting and diverse perspectives on energy leadership. We're delighted I think it was a year and a half ago, that Ms. Janie Gonzalez reached out to me, and she was actually looking for Hispanic contractors to go do work at CPS Energy. She turned out to be one of the board trustees over there, and didn't realize how significant the role she was playing at that organization. And she started talking about how we needed to get a Latino as a CEO for CPS Energy in San Antonio, which is about 80% Latino. And so anyway, learned a lot about the municipalities. We're very delighted that we have one of her efforts here tonight. I mean this afternoon, and that's Rudy Garza, who is the CEO for CPS Energy in San Antonio. And then, of course, you've already been introduced to Joseph Dominguez. And then we also have virtually Nick Medina. He's with ExxonMobil. And the way we're going to start this is we're going to have it opened up by having them tell us about their organizations and maybe a little bit about how they got to where they got. And so I think that would be very helpful. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll start with Rudy.
Okay. Good afternoon, I guess. I'm sorry, I've been going at it early this morning. My name is Rudy Garza. I'm president and CEO of CPS Energy. We're a municipally owned utility down in San Antonio, Texas, owned by the city of San Antonio. We are the nation's largest combined electric and gas utility owned by a municipality. So, we're concentrated in the Bexar County area of Texas. We serve, portions of all the counties around San Antonio. But by scale, $3.6 billion in revenue. I've got 3,500 plus employees, $15 billion in assets. We are a, fourth largest generator in the state of Texas. So we control right under 8,000 megawatts of generation, both fossil fuel, nuclear. My new partner right here next to me down at the South Texas project, which we're excited to be in business with Constellation now. And then we are number one in solar in Texas. We've got a little under 1,300 megawatts of solar under contract, and we're number 2 in wind. We've got close to 1,200 megawatts. So we are a large utility, about 1 million customers on the electric side. About 400,000 customers on the gas side, and we're growing in every direction. So San Antonio is blessed with about 2% growth in our utility customer base a year, and I'm setting over 30,000 new meters every year in my community. I've been in the utility business personally for 30 years. Spent 15 years, give or take, with TXU up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is where I kind of, got my start in the business. Joe and I share public policy in our background. I spent about 15 years lobbying Austin for that utility, and picked up DC about 2008. So I've been coming up to DC for a while as well. 13 years ago, I was blessed that CPS Energy came calling. I've done a lot of different roles within CPS Energy. I've been external relations VP, federal, state, local governmental affairs. I was the distribution operations executive, so I had all the wires business for about 4 years. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, UT Austin. And then I was chief customer officer for a couple of years. And when Winter Storm Uri hit, a lot of transition, obviously. The customers being out is not a good thing for CEOs of utilities. And so our CEO at the time, a great lady, Paula Gold Williams, decided to retire, and the board asked me to step in to the CEO role. And I'll just say my boss is here today, Jenny Gonzalez. She's chair of the board of CPS Energy. I'm the first Latino CEO at CPS Energy for a community, as Jose mentioned, that is 65, 70% Latino. Those things don't happen without diversity at the board level. So I want to thank Janie for her efforts to give me this opportunity. So, thank you.
Joe?
Look, I think you already heard our story, but I do have a funny Rudy story to tell you. So we did this transaction last year where we bought a piece of the South Texas project, and I called to introduce myself to Rudy. He's a great guy. He sued me about 24 hours later. So we've had a judge in the middle of our relationship. It seems that that's the course for me in some of my relationships anyway. But it was the board. But here's the thing about it. From the first call with Rudy, we knew we had a common background, and we kind of approached this issue from the perspective of our organizations in a way where we were trying to solve it, right? I mean, we said it in the first call, let's try to solve it, we'll disagree on some stuff, but let's get it done. And I don't think that would have happened as easily if we weren't both Latinos and had a kind of common goal about life's work. It's just kind of an interesting, fascinating thing about how relationships are formed. And now we're great partners, and we're going to, we quickly turn that into, all right, how do we do the next great thing together? And I just think it's just wonderful having worked with him, even though he did sue me. So that's probably as good a reference. Yeah, that's as good a reference as you're going to get. Look, my background, I was an engineer, initially became a lawyer afterwards. I wandered into Exelon's office looking to do legal work for them, met a great guy who hired me from the law firm I was at, and he was a wonderful mentor. But to the other point I had raised earlier, I thought I was doing good work for Exelon in the legal department in a variety of things. But folks wouldn't have paid attention to me had we not had Judge Nelson Diaz on the board of Exelon, who grabbed the CEO by the collar and said, hey, pay attention to this guy. He's got something to offer. He might be able to do some good things for the company over time. And because somebody started to pay attention, then the next things that happened were mentorship and different opportunities to stretch and do all those things. It's like I lived what I'm talking about here, of having somebody put a spotlight on you and say, this person could do it. And without that, there's no way I'm here. Without Nelson being in my life, there's no way I would have had the opportunities I've had at Constellation. So those are the relationships we're forming. Hopefully not all of them involve lawsuits. But even when they do, they could turn into great things.
That's
So,
right. Thank you very much.
Jose.
Thank you. And then we have Nick Medina on virtual from Exxon. Nick, could you please share with us a little bit about ExxonMobil and your career rise there?
Thank you, Jose. Number one, can you hear me well?
Just a little bit more volume.
More volume, okay. I never have problems speaking a little bit louder, so if this is better. First of all, thank you for this opportunity and privilege to join you. My apologies that I have to do it remotely. My youngest of 4 kids fell ill over the weekend, and he nearly needed surgery. He's more stable, but I'm glad that Jose and Hispanics in Energy were able to make a Zoom participation available. I'm the public and stakeholder manager for ExxonMobil in the pipeline side of our company, and I've been with ExxonMobil for 33 years, right? Almost equally, 1/3 in upstream, 1/3 in downstream. And the last 13 years or so, I've been in the midstream side, of which pipelines play a fundamental role. I like to always share to folks that pipelines are what connects the business. You know, they move products from point A to point B. And when we talk about a lot of the stuff that is excitingly happening in the energy transition, pipelines are going to be fundamental, right? I often share that CCUS, which is carbon capture and utilizations and storage, is missing the T in the middle because without transportation, we wouldn't be able to make it happen, right? ExxonMobil, most of you know, large enterprise, right? And I got to tell you, my 33 years in this great company has really prepared me well to what's coming ahead. But I've always been proud to be one of the many Latinos that we have inside ExxonMobil, right? Some of you that are in the audience and that we were going out to dinner tonight, and I'm unfortunately have to cancel out. Remember that more than 20 years ago, exactly 20, I helped start the employee resource group of ExxonMobil for Latinos, GOAL, the Global Organization for the Advancement of Latinos. And, I've been involved in Latino organizations throughout my career externally on behalf of ExxonMobil. And I got to say, the time that we're living now in this new evolution on the future of energy is an exciting time that we as energy folks, we're going to play a fundamental role in shaping that up. But at the same time, as Latinos, we're going to make sure our communities are part of that. And you wouldn't think, but I think for the last 2 years, I spent almost more than half of my time talking about energy transition and energy projects because, ExxonMobil is not a small player. So for years, we've been involved in all kinds of new technologies and new business opportunities. And we're really excited about what is coming ahead, right? I also chaired the Tapia Center at Rice University, right, with Richard Tapia, right? And with him, we've been able to starting a community awareness program that is really targeting underrepresented communities. And this last summer, right, we did STEM camps for more than 400 kids in the Gulf region, in Texas, Louisiana, in showing them what carbon is and how we can capture the emissions from carbon to address the challenges that we have in climate change going ahead. And it is really fascinating to see the youth taking that role, right, and making sure that they're part of the solution, right? And I can only speak on behalf of the women and men of our company and across our geography. There is a lot that we will need to do to make sure our communities are aware, not just of the opportunities, but the responsibilities of making this evolution of energy be equitable, be productive, be efficient, and be safe, right? And this last weekend, I spent 2 days at Texas A&M because I also partner with, the Texas Engineering Services on training first responders, on getting ready for the new emerging fuels that will be hitting our markets and near our communities over the next few years. And we're starting to train, volunteer firefighters and municipal firefighters on how to transport and handle carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and other new emerging fuels that are coming. To date, we started this program a few years ago, but we trained over 680 firefighters on making sure that they have the basics because safety comes first, and safety in our communities needs to be fundamental in everything we do. But I'm delighted to join you here. Again, I apologize not being there in person, but I'm anything I can add and serve to Jose and Hispanics in Energy. I think our community has to play a role in helping this evolution of energy take place. Did you guys hear me?
Hello? This one works.
Hello.
Here,
Oh,
here.
there it goes. All right, thank you. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? So we have very diverse energy sectors, and it's just really incredible what's going on. So each of these sectors has like a trade association that really works with all the companies in that energy sector. And I sure would like to hear from our incredible panel members here, their thoughts about the opportunities and the challenges that their trade group has in terms of incorporating more Hispanics into their organizations at every level, not only at the executive, but with contracts in the workforce. For example, CPS Energy is a member of the American Public Power Association, and they have 2,200 members. ExxonMobil is a member of the American Petroleum Institute, and Constellation is a member of just American Gas, and you are also a member of Edison Electric Institute. And so, what are your thoughts as you walk through these meetings with these very strong leaders in their area, and in terms of what advice would you give us to maybe deal with some of the challenges and taking advantage of some of the opportunities that might be available?
Well, I'll start. Between the American Public Power Association, I'm also on the board of the Large Public Power Council, which really is a collection of the largest public power utilities across the country. I probably spend a little more time with Large Public Power Council than the American Public Power Association because they look a little more like we do. They're vertically integrated. They're in all, the value chain of our business. American Public Power Association, a little bit smaller utilities for the most part, distribution only, but they both serve a very, important purpose. Public power is different than, the drivers of the IOUs. Now, we still have an important responsibility to return, to ensure returns, strong returns to our shareholders. And I'm proud that the 2 years I've been CEO, we've sent more returns back to the city of San Antonio than in the history of CPS Energy, because we're doing the things that
Another success.
that we're supposed to be doing. But when I look across my peers, there are success stories with all those companies in their own right. We all have to do a better job of recognizing the diversity within our own organizations and lifting, those folks up. Just because I'm the first, all that means is there'll be somebody behind me. I'd like to see a Latina as the CEO of CPS Energy, someday, for instance. But I will tell you, there are very few rooms I walk into where there are more than just a couple of us. Javier Fernandez, who, if y'all don't know Javier, he's the CEO of Omaha Public Power. A great guy, great executive, former CFO. I think he also came from the private sector. But there are really great success stories all across the country, but they're few and far between. So I think as an industry, we've got to do a better job of finding talent and lifting that talent up and giving them opportunities to do better things. It wasn't until I walked into one of my former CEO's offices one day, and he asked me, "Rudy, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I gave him the same nonsensical answer that most people, I just want to provide value, I want to do a good job. And they're like, "No, Rudy, do you want to be a CEO or not? Because I think you have what it takes." And it's the first leader that ever put the thought in my head that I could be a CEO. And things have to work out, the way they have to get here. But I think we've got opportunities across the whole, across our whole industry to help folks, achieve their maximum potential. So I think that remains an opportunity, but it takes forums like this for those of us who have gotten here, to talk about what it takes to get here. And the two things that I would say it takes is a huge dose of humility, right? And a lot of hard work. And if you just do your part, and things work out, the right way, then you get your chance. And that's how it worked for me. But I think as an industry, we got a long way to go from where we are today to there being a true reflection of the diversity that of the customers that we serve. My deal has always been this, and I used to get real frustrated when I was in the private sector because our executive ranks did not reflect the faces of our customers. And I think we have to be thinking about succession planning in a way that moves us in that direction, because your customers have to, for you to connect appropriately with your customers, you have to have something in common with them. And I grew up in a 800 square foot home with my grandparents with no air condition, and we were poor. So I've got a little different perspective about the 60% of my customers who are at or below the federal poverty guideline, because I've been there, right? And that's why diversity is important. So a lot of opportunity ahead of us.
Thank you, Rudy. Joe?
I think the gap is, I would just echo a little bit of what Senator Padilla said. I think the gap is in representation in public office, on utility commissions, at the NRC, at FERC, other state regulatory bodies. One of the things we've talked about as a board is, can we get to a spot where we have kind of a roster of people that want to serve in these positions and recommend them? Jose and I have talked about, the reality, whether we have a changeover in administration or the president is reelected for another 4 years, this is kind of a natural moment where people leave the first term of the administration and new people come in. So it's a great opportunity for us to start getting the resumes of folks who are interested in serving in front of folks. And that's where I think quite honestly, as we've diagnosed it for HIE, that's something we need to aspire to. And I think these trade organizations are another vehicle to do the same thing. I think the pressure that folks like Rudy and I could put on the organizations is for them to focus on Latinos that are ready for these positions and to make sure that there's adequate pressure on these public bodies to hire and promote people of color into these new jobs. We're just not there yet, and for some reason, our community tends to be reticent about getting very active and aggressive in terms of assuring that there's a pipeline for future leaders in places like DOE and future leaders in all the important places. Because while we have power in our jobs, Senator Padilla is the real game, right? That's where the real power exists. But when he's thinking about who the next round of appointees might be, have we given him a list of qualified folks that we've scrubbed? Because, look, to me, only when you populate the leadership positions are you able to drive the focus we're talking about, right? All the things we're looking for. I didn't get my gig by myself. I got it because Nelson Diaz was on the board. Nelson Diaz isn't on the board, I don't get my gig, right? It's just as simple as that. Not that I didn't deserve to get it, not that I wasn't qualified or would do a good job. All those things are a given, but you have to know folks. And, Jose, we got to get this organization to a point where, we're coming to conferences like this and people are walking up afterwards and saying, look, I'd like to do that. I want to be a utility commissioner. I want to serve on the Department of Environmental Protection or whatever it might be. And then we have the horsepower to do something with it. I think we're beginning to assemble that here at HIE. When you get 3 U.S. senators and a cabinet secretary to speak at a meeting like this, it certainly suggests that you have the reach into those offices. But honestly, we aren't well enough organized, and I'd say the same thing for the trade organizations if we're going to be self-critical about it. But that's where we got to get to.
Yeah, very good. Nicolas, can you offer your perspective on this?
Absolutely. We all must play a role. And I would add, and echo what Senator Padilla just mentioned. there is a lot going in which there is a bit of federal funds being made available. He mentioned, the Terra Nova project in California for hydrogen. There is 6 other projects around the country that are also being vetted with Department of Energy for $1 billion of additional funding to support the energy transition, right? Here in the Gulf region, we're close and we're part of the High Velocity project that is based here in Houston. But there's 5 others across the country. There's a couple in the Midwest. There is a couple in the Northeast. There's a couple in the West Coast. And then there is the one here in the Gulf region that is High Velocity. Almost every week there is some sort of a, community panel, or there is some sort of a Zoom meeting in which you're taking input and sharing information in the community about all these opportunities ahead. You just got to go to DOE and you can get the list of opportunities that are there. And even when you're located in any of those hubs, reach out to the people that are kind of organizing this effort. I mean, here in Houston, I reach out to John Hall, who, is part of High Velocity, and he's leading the environmental justice community engagement part of that project. And we're starting to have a discussion about what can we learn from each other and the role that the different communities are going to play in making sure that the benefits of those projects reach out to those that are most in need. So for Latinos, yeah, we have to represent, but we have to make our voices heard. Sometimes, and I go back to, we're humble. I love the term that we came empty-handed that I heard earlier on. I'm an immigrant too. I came from Nicaragua, and when I came here as a teenage boy, I'd say, folks, empty hands, but heart full of dreams. We are about family. We are about our values, right? And we are about economic opportunities. And we want to give those opportunities to our kids, to our friends, to our relatives, to our community where we live. We need to get engaged in how these new energy efforts are going to play out, because either as consumers or as players in the industry, we're going to be affected by it. And it is on behalf of that effort that staying engaged, promoting from within, making sure others get the opportunity to speak up and to actually move ahead in forming that architecture for the new energy future, that we can play that role. I got to tell you, in my 33 years in the oil and gas industry, I've been privileged to represent Exxon in not only the American Petroleum Institute, but the Liquid Energy Pipeline Association, right? A number of Hispanic organizations across the board, from Hispanic Heritage Foundation to SHIP to, Nashimba and others. And our youth, our future in the Latino community is desperately looking to have those opportunities, and this is the right time to make them heard. So I applaud what we're doing and what you're doing, Jose, with Hispanics and Energy, and count with my support in anything that I can make happen.
All right, thank you so much, Nick. I have other questions, but I thought since we've got ending in our time here, are there any questions from the audience that you would like to ask such a distinguished group of people here? Jose?
Yes, Senor, I'm on the board of Hispanics and Energy and California Corporation. One of the things that I've noticed in energy is that you have the energy to meet with other associations and do policy formation on the Hill. One of the things that's lacking, well, first of all, there's two for us and my friends in solar, where we're trying to get access to financial support from the federal government. We still don't have that. Where is the justice in that? But for you, big problem that all of you have combined, oil and gas, utilities, water, and so on, is permitting. And when I mean permitting, I'm talking that when you are looking to go down the road, whether it's upstream or downstream, whether it's putting electrical, even along the transportation programs, where the new transportation bill has put a lot of money that's going to be available for that. There's no rules in there and no support for right-of-way. Are your organization, your companies dealing with other companies which are dealing with your associations? So collectively, you go to Congress and say, hey, we have a big issue here, and that is the right of way. Because us as supporters and maintenance to you, when we go for a permit, because the federal government doesn't do it, and it usually takes 48 hours if the federal government does it. Instead, it takes us 4 years, 8 months, 8 weeks, 8 minutes, 8 seconds at the state level, the city level, the county, and everywhere else. Is there any effort in that direction for permitting?
Well, on every one of our federal priorities, whether it be at the association level or at CPS Energy, the regulatory, requirements it takes to get infrastructure investment in the ground is a top priority. So I agree with you that the time it takes to get a permit for whatever the case might be, at the federal level, it may take you 15 years to build a transmission line. By that time, the whole market's changed. In Texas, it's a 3 to 5 year process because we don't have to go through FERC at the federal level. So yeah, it's a problem, and it's on all our agendas. I don't know that we're making a ton of progress in that space, but we're talking about it. And so we're just going to have to keep nicking away. And I'll tell you what it's going to take, probably. It's going to take a reliability event to get people to realize we need to pick up the pace in making this investment for us to actually get something, done on this issue. But I will tell you, for the work we're doing in San Antonio on our gas system, permitting is a huge issue. And it's usually why it takes us longer than it should take to get a gas line built.
Yeah, Jose, I think permitting is the bane of everybody's existence right now. There's you guys have all heard the term NIMBY, not in my backyard. There's an acronym, NIMBYism and all of that stuff. It's been replaced by bananaism. Build absolutely nothing, anyone near anyone. That's the world we're living in, and I think it's partly fueled by the fact that we cannot agree about what resources we need to build. The environmentalists block pipelines. Different communities block transmission lines because they don't like that outcome. There are economic interests in all of this stuff. People use the legal system in a way that delays projects almost indefinitely to the point of the failure of the project. The thing I think that was a bit of a game changer for DOE is to link the issue of equity and permitting together. And understanding that permitting is essentially about permission, right? You get permission if you're creating jobs and economic opportunities by the people that are going to be affected by the permit. And in particular, if you take some of the monies and create jobs and economic opportunities in communities that need jobs and economic opportunities. And I think to the extent that any of us are going to be able to wrestle down these issues of permission, it's going to be more and more about what are you doing for the community? What are you doing to create jobs in the community so that they can feel a part of being the beneficiaries of this? The way to deal with environmental justice issues, in part, environmental justice being building industrial development near poor communities and the shadow that casts sometimes, that discussion changes if you're employing people from that community and you're creating family-sustaining wages in that community. So I think the DOE has done a great job, and the infrastructure bill and the IRA has done a great job in terms of starting to link those issues. I think companies like ours have to get better about describing that linkage and describing the benefits, and we also have to start understanding that permitting issues isn't a legal problem. It's a social problem that requires permission from the groups that are affected. We're not there yet. We're trying to get better at it in our business. But look, there's a weirdness. We own the Conowingo Dam. It's probably the largest dam in the country outside of the Hoover Dam. It was built at a time when America built great things in a handful of 3 or 4. It was built when Babe Ruth was patrolling right field for the Yankees, right? But it was done in 3 years. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to imagine a project like that being done in 30 years, just given the amount of permitting. So we don't have societal permission, And we have to figure out different means of getting societal permission, because walking down the track of a permitting solution isn't going to get us there. But, you know, to Rudy's point, if we don't figure out the solution to this stuff does actually need to get built at some level to avoid some catastrophic consequences and do the great things we want to do as a nation, fight the climate crisis, and spur economic development. We got 200 large investments of factories coming back to the U.S. as people onshore from Europe and places that don't have the energy security of our country. We have geopolitical pressures right now, challenges with China and other countries, where we're realizing, hey, we better control the supply chain of certain things like electric transformers in our business and other things that we're far too dependent on other countries that sometimes have politically very different interests. But if we don't get permitting done, and I appreciate, Jose, your question, if we don't get that figured out, then we're not going to take on the things that are vitally important to us from a national security perspective, a reliability perspective, and an economic perspective. So, big stuff, but we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. We got to reinvent that. People like Maria have done this stuff a lot more, and they kind of giggle when I talk about it because they live that life. But it's the real meat and potatoes of this thing.
Nick, we got a short time. Did you want to add to this perspective? And because we're getting close to ending our session.
I'll give you the 30-second pitch. Everybody's right. Getting new permits is tough. But I think the essential thing is we need to engage effectively with the communities where the projects are going to happen way ahead of starting to put boots on the ground, right? If you do effective engagement well, it gives you an opportunity to get the support that you need from the locals. It's when the engagement doesn't happen and communities feel that they're being, shoved down their throat with a new project that they didn't get an opportunity to voice their issues, that it becomes a concern, right? And it can easily get politicized, right? And listen, I man and I lead the team in the pipeline company of ExxonMobil that is out there in the ground talking with community members. And there is a number of elected officials out there that work side by side with us, and we put our cards on the table and say, this is what we're going to do ahead of time, and they really work to make it happen. So I applaud those people that are out there in the communities, meeting with leaders, talking to folks, hosting public meetings, panels with community residents and talking about what's coming next. We all need to be a part of it, either as part of the industry, as part of the regulatory agencies that are also, DOE does a great job. He's trying to fund also an incentive to get people to participate in this issue. Public participation, collaboration with the private sector is going to be essential for all the things that we need to do and to get the permits in an effective manner.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, everyone. We have maybe 30 seconds, closing remarks. Joe, since you're our chair.
Well, look, we've got a lot of wood to chop in a lot of different places. And, I'll just leave you with this. If we're going to populate lists of people who are going to be in different positions that we want to advocate for, our membership is going to be our resource on that. Yeah. And it would be wonderful if we kind of started to be able to collect that information, understand who wants to work with the organization, what your aspirations are. Rudy said it right. Like, we tend to be polite when somebody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? We're like, let us work into our position, all that stuff. But that's not the way everybody handles it. Let's be a little bit more outspoken and understand your priorities better. And as an organization, I think HIE will be better as we continue to evolve. So that's all I'd say, Jose.
All right. Rudy, any parting words?
No, just thank you for having us. CPS Energy is proud to be partnering with HIE. We got to do these things to support our community, not just at the local level, but at the national level. So I look forward to working with HIE into the future. And Jose, congratulations on a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Nick, do you have any remarks, Nick?
Oh, thank you. That's all.
All righty. Thank you very much to our panel members. Weren't they stellar?
Thank you.
Good to see you again, sir.
Okay, thank you so very much. Isn't it amazing to have the menos of these companies here with us? Give it up again for our last panelists. So we have our next session starting, and thank you, Jose, for putting us back on track. We're going to be continuing while you take pictures, so we don't want to get too far behind. Our next session is entitled Multi-Agency Energy-Related Infrastructure Funding and Development. And Maria Pia from Dominion Energy is our moderator. Thank you, Maria. And we have Gene and from the Department of Energy. And I think you will self-introduce in a minute. I'm not going to introduce you all. And Zealand Hoover from EPA. But I want to say we are very, very fortunate to have Mr. Ali Zaidi, who I know wanted to be here in person and unfortunately couldn't be here today. He's traveling, but he still agreed to be here today. Ali Zaidi is a National Climate Advisor. He serves, so I'm going to do a brief introduction before I hand it over to Maria. So thank you, Ali, for being with us today. Ali Zaidi serves as Assistant to the President and National Climate Advisor at the White House. In his role, he leads the White House Climate Policy Office, and that office coordinates policy development and President Biden's all-of-government approach to tackle the climate crisis. So we've heard about the Inflation Reduction Act, and it is monumental, folks. It is transformative. Since the New Deal, we haven't really seen something like this. And it's his job to really coordinate all the different agencies. This is a huge task. He is a longtime advisor to President Biden, having provided counsel and leadership on climate policy development, legislation, and executive action from day one of this administration. He was on the Biden presidential transition and campaign. So before his current role, he served as Deputy National Climate Advisor. During his time in the Biden-Harris administration, Mr. Zaidi has led on efforts to reestablish U.S. climate leadership. He set a national target to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, 52% by 2030. And I'm going to let, Ali, I just messed that up. I'm going to let you talk about that. So let me just say that he brings the cross-sector and multidisciplinary experience needed to deliver this whole of government response to the climate crisis that I'm going to hand it over to Maria to explain some more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm really excited to be here. Yep. So I am going to go ahead and start the panel and let our panelists kind of give quick remarks and kind of introduce themselves and talk a little bit. And Ali, and I do apologize I cannot see you, but if you want to go ahead and start it off.
Yeah, absolutely. My video is rolling, so I don't know if you guys can
hear you.
Improve upon that. But I'm grateful to be with all of you, albeit virtually. This is just such an important inflection point in not just the history of this country, but of the world, as we face down a crisis like no other, one that shows up in our communities every day now, whether it's the extreme heat in the Southwest that has been impacting our workers and the elderly, children, vulnerable populations, whether it's the drought that has been impacting yields out west, parching the fields farmers and ranchers have been taken care of for generations, whether it's the wildfires that now burn with greater fury, running right up to our communities in so many places, floods, hurricanes, so much risk, so much doom and gloom, but also so much opportunity. And that's where all of you come in. If we are going to meet this moment, if we're going to rise to the task of tackling the climate crisis, we will only do that. We will only be successful if we are fielding a full team. If everyone in the United States feels empowered with the resources and the tools and the training to be able to step into this task of building a better America. And that's what the Biden administration has tried to do from day one. Not just to sort of put the Inflation Reduction Act or the infrastructure law or our regulatory programs or other things out into the world and let the market do what it will with them, but to really be an active participant, engaged with communities who so often are, I think, looked over when it comes to moments of massive economic churn and massive economic expansion. My big challenge to the folks assembled today is maybe riffing off of this last panel, to not just put your head down, not just sort of continue along the path that you've been on, doing the hard work, but to also be entrepreneurial, to push the boundaries and limits, to try to plow into new fields with the expertise and the experience and the backgrounds that you bring. And when it comes to the climate crisis, very specifically to me, what that looks like is HIE thinking of itself as a talent pool that can help us not just decarbonize the grid and the power sector, but also help us decarbonize buildings, help us decarbonize heavy industry, help us improve the environmental performance of agriculture and land use, help us take on the transportation sector and the emissions that come from that. Because in each of these, there's opportunity in climate terms, there's also massive opportunity in economic terms. So, as we take stock of how the Inflation Reduction Act and some of the programs that we put together are panning out, I'm excited to see the work that all of you are doing in partnership and collaboration with us through organizations on the ground, in the private sector, in the quasi-public sector, to help us tap into the opportunity of all of these things. You'll hear from Zealand, who's been hard at work launching so many critical programs through the Environmental Protection Agency. Now we've got electric buses showing up in hundreds of school districts across the country. That's an opportunity for our kids to breathe cleaner air, but it's also opportunity for those factory workers at Bluebird in Georgia to manufacture those vehicles here in the United States. We're launching soon the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, capitalizing green banks across the country. That's going to be opportunity for small businesses, for contractors to get into homes and help people switch from gas furnaces to electric heat pumps and help the folks who live in those homes knock hundreds of dollars off the bill. So it's opportunity for those homeowners or renters. It's opportunity for those contractors. In the transportation sector, we're seeing a real transformation take place. The U.S. has gone from being really a laggard watching the transformation take place to being in the lead on electric vehicles. And that goes for everything from the charging stations that folks are installing now across the country, whether it's for electric bikes and scooters in Arizona, or it's chargers from coast to coast for vehicles, or it's the battery factories that are now employing lots of folks in places like Nevada and across the industrial Midwest. And, I would not stop at the traditional sort of sectors when it comes to climate. I would look at things like steel and cement and aluminum. There's now a premium market developing around clean construction materials. You can help us work with those factories that produce those materials to do it in a cleaner way, and that can mean massive economic opportunity. So look, we want to be your partner, whether it's in dealing with the impacts of a changing climate, Department of Agriculture, Department of Labor setting standards, whether it's improving the performance of our lands for farm owners through conservation grants, and with this spur for climate smart agriculture across the country, whether it's boosting the performance of our buildings, HUD, Department of Energy investing billions in an unprecedented effort to upgrade our buildings, or whether it's getting to where we need to go on transportation and the electricity sector. Let me just leave with the electricity sector, because I know so many of the members of HIE are spending time in the power sector. Look, since we took office, we've doubled the pace with which we're deploying solar and wind. We've quadrupled the pace of battery storage. But if we are going to hit our targets in this decade and in the next one, we're going to need to double that pace once more. That means lots more folks beyond who have been traditionally employed in this space, stepping into careers, scoping out the land, securing it, getting the permits, doing the pre-engineering work, contracting for the parts, doing the construction, helping us with interconnection, getting those electrons flowing on the grid. That's hundreds of thousands of jobs. And I'll end where I started. We will only tap into the upside of what climate represents. We will only tell the story of hope and opportunities, and not the story of doom and despair, if we get everybody, every single American, into the game, seeing the economic upside and participating in the work, the hard work of building this sustainable future. You are our critical partners in doing that. Very sorry to not be able to be in the room. Not sure if you can see my face now, and hope to hang out with a bunch of you in the coming months and years as we continue this work together. But for now, it sounds like you got Maria and Jean and Zealand in the room, and we'll have an incredible conversation on how exactly we're trying to put the throwaway to the federal government behind you and in partnership with you as part of the Biden-Harris administration. Very grateful for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was great, a great summary and a great introduction to the discussion. I'm going to give an opportunity to Zealand and Jean. Zealand Hoover's EPA Senior Advisor, and Jean Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of Energy, the Office of Electricity. So Jean, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about what you do, what your Department of Energy is currently working on?
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you very much, and it's a delight and a pleasure to be here with you all. First, name, rank, and serial number. Jean Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of Energy for the Office of Electricity. Now, what the heck does that mean, Jose? It's a broad title, but it tells us two things. It tells us two things. Number one, in my role, which is a presidential appointment, Senate confirmed, the focus of my office is to enable the economic productivity, the health, safety, and comfort of every single American and all those folks who live in the 6 territories. Reliability, resiliency, security, and affordability, that's our job. It is the platform upon which economic growth and opportunity is built. So that's the job. The 2 other things before we sneak away are I am one of so many exhibits here in the Forrestal building of the Department of Energy that this administration and our secretary at the Department of Energy don't just talk the words of inclusion and invitation, but they live it. We have a Department of Energy that is more reflective of the faces of the people of America than ever before. And finally, last but not least, the thing that brought Jose and I, we go back, so we are so old, you cannot imagine. What brought me out of retirement is the opportunity that this administration and this Secretary of Energy created, not just to invite people like us in, but to actually make a difference and try to raise all others up. So I came out of retirement to come back to the Department of Energy because this department, this administration, is focused not just on getting money out the door. It's not just deploy, 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 but it's create opportunity, not just invite, but create opportunity for each and every one of us and all the folks we represent in the room. So that's my introduction, and
Thank you. That's great. Zealand Hoover?
Great. It's wonderful to be here with you all this afternoon. My name is Zealand Hoover. I'm a senior advisor to Administrator Michael Regan at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And at EPA, we have over $100 billion in new funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act to protect public health and the environment. And under that infrastructure umbrella, about half of that funding is going towards clean energy, decarbonization, and environmental justice programs that are really relevant to today's conversation. So I look forward to talking in more detail about the work that we're doing there. My role is to work across all of our offices at EPA to make sure that we're getting that funding out quickly, that we're driving a lot of impact, and that we're doing it in a very inclusive and intentional manner. And so it's great to be here with you all today. I look forward to talking more about how these programs are going to benefit the communities, the organizations, the workforces, the people that you all represent. And thank you very much for having me.
No, this is great. I think one thing that I took away from hearing Ali and both of you give sort of your initial remarks is that I heard the word opportunity repeated several times. And I think as a Hispanic myself, a Latina, that you've heard a lot of stories of us coming to the U.S. with very little. Opportunities is a word that really resonates with our community. So let me start with questions because we don't have a lot of time. So how are your organizations implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion and Justice 40 initiatives? Can you talk a little bit about that and give us maybe some examples?
Yeah, happy to kick things off. I'll give the high-level answer and then happy to go into any program in more detail, but sort of a two-part answer. So first on Justice 40, the President was very clear that he wants to see the Justice 40 initiative, 40% of the benefits flowing to underserved and disadvantaged communities across all of the relevant environmental and climate programs. And so at EPA, where our mission is protecting public health and the environment, that covers just about everything we do. And so with the programs that I'm managing implementation of, almost every single one of those programs is directly providing financial assistance out to communities. And so what we've done is we've written into the design of each of those programs that at least 40% of the benefits of each individual program have to accrue to those communities. And of course that means something different for every type of program depending on the design, but it's really exciting running the full gamut from, Ali mentioned the electric school bus, the clean school bus program that we're running. The vast majority of the clean school buses that we have funded over the last 2 years have been touching down in rural, tribal, low-income school districts where that investment is going to go the extra mile in reducing air pollution, in saving those school districts funds on operating costs, getting them an opportunity to not just not be left behind, but to get a leg up in the energy transition. And so we're integrating Justice 40 into all of our programs. Diversity, equity, inclusion, that has some overlap, but is also a lot about the DNA of the organizations that we're partnering with. So that's something else that we're looking at. And every competition is different, but across over 70 programs that we have new funding for, thanks to President Biden and Congress, we're incorporating that into how we're selecting applications, into the evaluation criteria. We want to partner with organizations that care about representing every part of this country and pulling in diverse groups and making sure that the programs that they're designing are able to serve everyone in every part of the country, given their different needs and experiences.
That was a fabulous answer. So let me just add a little bit to it. And I'm not a math guy, but it's not you get what you measure, it's get what you mean. And in this administration, you see two things. Number one, Justice 40, let us not forget where you started. Justice 40 is about ensuring and having accountability for ensuring that 40% of the benefits of the historic amounts of money being spent today and continuing to be spent throughout this administration is going to communities that have been underrepresented in the past. That's meaning what you say. The second element of that is we need to step back. This is a systemic issue. Underrepresentation is a systemic issue in every part of our country. So you can't just handle it by fixing the work we're doing today. You have to figure out how to create opportunity for people of color. And in our department, in the Department of Energy, one of the things I'm very proud of is the work that's being done across the department to ensure that we're working with Hispanic serving institutions, in fact, across all minority serving institutions, to absolutely increase in ways that are impactful, not just our commitment, but our funding and our action in those markets. Let me give two quick statistics and we go on. Number one, as we sit here today, when we're looking at where the workforce of the future is coming from, one thing you would look at are all the training programs we have. Over 100, I think it's 104 community colleges training people for jobs in this new energy economy. That's an increase. But more important than that even, is we take it at every level. So we have, as we sit here today, some 200 internships across Hispanic serving institutions for undergraduate students to lure them in, not just into energy jobs, but into the jobs that create the energy leadership that Rudy was talking about earlier. That's how we're going to get more representation of the American people in the C-suites, in spots like mine that require a presidential appointment and congressional approval. We have in this administration so far, sorry, I'm getting excited because this is cool stuff, but in this administration, as we sit here, we have more than doubled from previous administration, more than doubled the amount of spending that we're doing in Hispanic serving institutions to create the new leadership level of tomorrow. These are the things that say you get what you mean.
I like to hear that like Fred talked about, I work at Dominion Energy, and one of the things that we have been doing is really working very closely with Hispanic serving institutions and HIE, which is Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, to really be able to reach young Hispanics and tell them of all the great things that are happening. So the other thing that I think it's really important, and I know that the administration also has been focusing on, is how do you reach the population at a younger level? I mean, beyond just colleges, universities, trade schools, and also, even high schools. So anything that you all are doing that you want to add towards that? And then I do want to move on to have a question around just Hispanic businesses. Anything do you want to add about sort of outreach to youth?
If you don't mind, I'll just say a real quick thing. So In my job, I jump on airplanes a lot, and I get to talk to a lot of people. Sometimes I'm getting off to speak to business leaders and communities and encouraging them to come in. Other times, one of the things we're working here is if you think about the national labs of America, the national labs, 17 of the most impressive things that you've ever seen. We are using that as the draw to get the tech-savvy youth of today who can do things I can never imagine, but get them interested in becoming part of this energy transformation. Because what's underway in this country is a fascinating technological, operational, economic transformation. But it's not well known, as you say, with the young folks. Utilities across the country in their service territory have done a wonderful job for decades of trying to attract young people to the industry. In this administration, what we're doing now is trying to use the national labs as a bright, shiny object to bring young people in and quite frankly, handhold them into understanding how they can make a difference in this world in the energy space.
I like that. Anything else that you would like to add?
Just that reaching young people and getting them engaged is a huge challenge, and one that no one has fully solved, but one that we're really focused on at EPA, one that's near and dear to Administrator Regan's heart. It's a huge challenge because we're actually doing quite well in hitting the marks that we need to hit to fight climate change. Don't get me wrong, 50 to 52% emissions reduction by 2030, net zero by 2050 is ambitious and daunting. But if you look at the Inflation Reduction Act investments on top of the bipartisan infrastructure law investments, on top of the regulatory programs that we continue to push forward, add in state action, local action, private sector innovation, like we have a fighting chance to hit those marks. And it's not going to be easy, but it's very possible. And then you contrast that with just a lot of the deep-seated anxiety that is particularly prevalent with young people who feel like we're not hitting the mark, maybe it's a lost cause, or we've already missed the opportunity. And so we're trying to capture that energy and redirect it into these opportunities, these jobs, to make the point that, yeah, it's really scary. And yeah, we should have done a lot of these things a long time ago, but it's not too late. There's still more you can do. The administrator just launched a National Youth Advisory Council back in November, pulling in young people from across the country to advise him directly on climate policy, and also to hopefully be, a more direct touch point into youth through their social media platforms and voices across the country. So we're trying to find innovative ways. It's definitely always a challenge, but it's just so important.
Yeah, I like that. And thank you so much for your input. That's great. So let's kind of transition a little bit to, we talked about talent. We talked about how do you inform and do outreach to youth and to colleges and universities. So let's talk a little bit about businesses. What are some of the opportunities that you see in the energy sector for Hispanic businesses? And can you maybe provide some examples?
Go for it.
Okay. I'll jump in. I mentioned earlier that I talked a little bit about some of the airplane trips I take. We in the department, one of the things we do is we have what we call economic summits. And here's the whole point of the economic summit. Where does business take place? It's local. It's not good enough to have a website that says, here are your opportunities. What we do is get our butts out of our seats, into airplane seats, but out into the communities, out across America, talking with the local businesses and giving them two kinds of advice. Number one, the parachute in part. I cannot underscore how much economic opportunity there is for small business, how much economic opportunity there is for small business and underrepresented Americans in the tremendous amount of money. We're talking trillions of dollars being spent in this energy reformation. So that's thing one. How do you bait the hook? But then how do you get business involved? I cannot tell you how difficult it is to fill out an application or do a contract with the federal government. And it's clear why we do it that way. Because we have an awesome responsibility to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent in ways that are appropriate and when looked at after the fact, are reasonable. So what we have to do, and what we do here, is we have an office within the Department of Energy that is actually focused on doing face-to-face support for small businesses, ensuring that it's not just that we're holding up a lot of money, but we're helping businesses. If you're underrepresented, that means you probably haven't been doing business with the federal government before. It's a complicated thing. We need, and we do, provide that hand-holding service. The office that does that is right here in the Department of Energy. Again, I hate doing this, but there are so many channels for getting help, and we put them all up on the website. Certainly we will get to every community that we can, but we have offices where if you knock on that door, our people come out and help you access that funding.
That's great.
So at EPA, we also have an Office of Small and Disadvantaged Businesses that's doing a lot of the same work, but one of the big distinctions between our programs and DOE's programs at a high level is that most of our funding is flowing through states, nonprofits, or other intermediaries before it's getting to the private sector. DOE generally is funding more private sector work directly through the various innovation and demonstration projects. And so at EPA, a lot of our focus is on making sure that small businesses across the country understand where EPA is pushing out money, so that you all and your constituencies and your networks know where to go do business development. So we are pushing out tens of billions of dollars into the water infrastructure space, and we want folks to know that there's a lot of opportunity subcontracting with and working for your local water municipal authority. We are pushing out huge amounts of money for rooftop solar, electric buses, electric heavy-duty vehicles, building electrification. And so these are also places where there's going to be a lot of market demand. There's going to be some partners that are very focused on supporting and pulling in small businesses, but it's a little different in that we, EPA, are not going to be directly doing a lot of those relationships. We'll be a step or two removed, but we certainly want to make sure that folks know where the opportunities are.
Great, thank you so much. This was really insightful. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for some questions from the audience. We have about 10 minutes. Yes, Fred?
Hi. Thanks so much, Zealand, for joining us. Gene, I have a question for Zealand. You touched upon the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is an amazing thing. And I actually was on one of the panels rating for the Solar for All. So
wonderful.
I have some knowledge, but I'm wondering if you can share with our audience more about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and how important it is to their community.
I would love the opportunity to do that. I'll try to be quick. So we received $27 billion for this program, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and it is roughly broken into two sets of programs. So there's a $7 billion program called Solar for All. We're going to be making approximately 60 awards. Our goal is to get awards out, at least one award to every state, or at least one award covering every state, to fund solar programs particularly focused on low-income and disadvantaged community residential solar. And so this is a really exciting opportunity to plug some of the gaps in the solar market to really drive better penetration into low-income solar all across the country. The second side, the $20 billion side, we're running two competitions, and the idea there is to really create a zero-emission, low-carbon finance ecosystem. And so the way that we think about this is it should be as easy to get a loan for a solar panel or a heat pump as it is to get a loan for a car today. And that's just not the case. You want to get loans for your for rooftop solar. In lots of cases, that's an unsecured loan, or you have to go through all of the hurdles to get a home equity line of credit. There's a lot of barriers there. And so we're picking partners that are going to provide a whole range of financial products to community financial institutions, so that CDFIs, credit unions, green banks, all have access to and are able to provide a lot more liquidity and standardized financial products. And so this is just one of those ways that we're going to make it a lot easier, more affordable, more dynamic to get the financing, so that we can then unlock a lot of the work. And we believe it's going to be just a huge accelerant for a wide range of decarbonization investments.
Thank you. That was very quick. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, David Ortiz, the Ortiz Group. We're a small business out of California. We oversee several equity programs. I really appreciate and I agree that this is a great time. There's lots of money out there and there's lots of information about these programs. But the real problem for small businesses is the policies once they're awarded. So the example I'll give is we were awarded an equity contract, theoretically back in August. We've been in negotiations ever since. It's going to be 20 months before we actually get our first paycheck. So we're going to spend about $350,000 before we even see $1. And most small businesses can't really float that in the payment terms, and we want to work with CBOs, and I think we all agree that if you want to serve these communities, you need to work with small businesses on the ground and CBOs. But I would say is that once you start getting into contracting, it's very prohibitive for a lot of small businesses. So what are the plans? What could be done to help bridge that gap? Thank you.
I absolutely appreciate and understand that concern. I always think about it, where did we start? When we talk about these historic investments in infrastructure and creating jobs here in America, let's recognize that the reason it's historic is not just that it's bipartisan, but it didn't exist before. So we had to start at ground zero building this up. I will say the Secretary, you could have been the Secretary of Energy standing there, because her concern, her approach is, let's get these things up and running. I can tell you one of the things we're a little proud of right now is all the new programs funded by this massive historic investment. Every single one of them is up and running now. So we're moving in this transition out of the get things set up and get through contracting into get the money out the door and get the work done. The sad thing is, if we had started with a foundation from before, maybe this would have been easier. But this administration and this secretary had to build it from ground zero, and we're always trying to find ways to streamline and accelerate the work, but we started from ground zero, and this is where we are.
Jose?
Thank you. Jose Nino, Biofriendly. Last year we took out 1.5 million tons of CO2 out of the air. With our fuel additives, we're in about 12 countries. We're a small business, we're a laboratory. Question, we are recognized by EPA, but we are certified by the United Nations for carbon credits. And I've been at COP 24, 25, 26, 27. You guys understand that. Most people don't, but it's on energy and the environment. My question to you guys is, where does Department of Energy, and where does the EPA stand on carbon credits today? What is the update, and what does the future look like? Thank you.
Do you want to start or a second?
Would love to follow you on that.
Okay, no worries. So I will speak now, because the only person in America who can fire me is the President of the United States. He's very busy ensuring that we're keeping this country on the right track. I think I can just say whatever I want and not be at any risk. So I will tell you what our policy position is on this, subject to check at some later point. It comes down to this. When I go to my desk every single day, what I focus on is not one vision for America or one approach that we think works. My job is to make sure that the solutions that we're creating out of the Department of Energy, out of the Office of Electricity, work in 50 different states, 6 different territories, whose energy policies, whose energy approaches, et cetera, can change at a moment's thing. I come from a clean energy background. I come from a climate background. That's how I got identified for this role, I think. I have very strong personal opinions about the need to focus on what's truly important, and that is addressing climate change. But I also know if I lead with that in some states in this country, it means people will just give me a polite round of golf clap applause and nothing will happen. So what I focus on is what will be effective in each and every state, no matter what the political winds are, no matter what the economic policies are, no matter what the energy scenario is. I think that is a lesson for all of us. I believe we need to make massive change, but let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good. Let's work in any way, shape, or form we can to get the right policies and right funding and right actions in place, and at the same time to create a new ecosystem where all of us are represented at the leadership table in making the decisions for the future.
Thank you. Zealand?
I can't think of any better way to end than that.
Well, thank you so much. We're at the end of this panel. And Zealand, Jean, thank you so much for your insights. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
We'd like to invite everyone, if they haven't already, or if you'd like to indulge at this moment, the catering over on the right-hand side. I'm sorry.
Actually, we're going to have Jose introduce Janine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's a flight that she needs to catch.
Oh, okay, no problem. I just want to tell you, either way, all the refreshments on the side wrap up at 3:30 p.m. So if you'd like a cup of coffee or anything, that closes at 3:30. Thank you.
We have one more speaker before break. All right. Thank you, everybody. Wow, it's very powerful conversations, powerful opinions, powerful people. Thank you so much for your contribution. So, and speaking about powerful people, the next person that I want to introduce, she's a very special lady. She's one of the icons of Latinas that are really in the forefront of energy in the country. And we are very delighted, and I think I mentioned earlier that she reached out to me because she was looking for Latino contractors, and she went on Google and she found Hispanics in energy and says, hey, are there any Latino contractors that do energy? And so I had no idea that she was a trustee at CPS, and then she told me that, and I looked it up and I go, wow, very impressive. And so we got together, and through her efforts and her leadership, we wound up and broke San Antonio's record of almost 100+ years of never having a Hispanic running the CPS energy utility there. So it's a big deal. And so we collaborated in that, and we're very proud that she's here with us. And Janie?
So I know I'm standing between a much-needed coffee break, but we do have a flight to catch, so thank you for accommodating me in that introduction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about energizing the future today and beyond. So again, good afternoon, distinguished colleagues and guests. My name is Janie Martinez Gonzalez, and it's a privilege to serve as the chairman of CPS Energy, the cornerstone of San Antonio's energy landscape and the nation's largest municipally owned utility. Our mission is deeply rooted in energizing the vibrant community of San Antonio and beyond. Today we stand at a pivotal junction with the vision at CPS Beyond Vision 2027, our blueprint for the future. This ambition plan underscores our commitment to bolstering infrastructure resiliency, enhancing security, and using innovation enterprise systems to elevate our service capabilities for both our dedicated employees and valued customers. On a historic note, on February the 5th this year, we marked a milestone at CPS Energy Board of Trustees and greenlit a historic budget of $1.8 billion, again, $1.8 billion, the largest in our 164-year legacy. It is a testament to our unwavering dedication in advancing San Antonio energy infrastructure, service excellence into a new era. Drawing upon my firsthand experience as a 30-year tech CEO of Webhead and an industry leader in deep technology, a focus on advanced science, engineering, and design to master problems of complexity, and serving as a trustee, I'm here to address a transformative era in the energy sector. An era propelled by the rapid evolution of groundbreaking technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, fusion energy, and the evolving challenges of advanced cybersecurity. Thank you. These innovations are not just technology feats, they are now a new dawn, promising fundamentally to alter the landscape of the energy generation, distribution, and consumption. However, this dawn brings with it shadows, the risk of expanding digital divide that threatens to leave low-income communities in the dark. It is our responsibility as leaders equipped with innovation vision and progressive strategies to eliminate the path and ensure no community is left behind. The potential and pitfalls of deep technology, the disruption of potential of quantum computing and fusion power is nothing short of revolutionary, offering efficiencies and sustainability previously considered unattainable. Yet the velocity of these technology advancements bring a pressing challenge, ensuring universal digital access and literacy. Our mission should be to share the benefits of these technologies, ensuring fair growth that transcends socio-economic barriers. In the dynamic landscape of the energy sector, strategic insight of CEOs at the forefront of leading energy firms, in collaboration with the board of directors, is essential. Together, they should be skillfully navigating the delicate balance between risk and innovation, advocating for investments and policies that not only protect the digital future, but also provide strength to the communities it represents. This progressive mindset will ensure that the digital transformation in energy acts as a catalyst for positive change, reducing the energy burden, enhancing quality of life across society, especially for those historically marginalized by inequalities. The constructive collaboration between visionary CEOs and strategic boards cannot be understated. This partnership, rooted in a shared commitment to technology equity, prioritizes the expansion of digital literacy and infrastructure, especially in underserved communities. It is a testament to the belief that the future of energy is not just digitized, but shared. To effectively bridge this divide, our strategy should be multifaceted. Invest in digital literacy, to commit to launching comprehensive education and training initiatives designed to elevate digital competency across every layer of society, expanding infrastructure, dedicating and enhancing digital connectivity, ensuring that underserved regions can fully take part in benefits from the digital energy economy. Engaging communities. We believe in the power of collaboration, working together with communities to deliver technology solutions that are both impactful and fair. And lastly, the advocacy for inclusive policies. Stand for universal access to technology, championing policies that foster a sustainable and accessible energy sector to all. As we venture forward collectively, as all of us are here today, representing different thoughts, different ideas, trying to break into business, or one day be a CEO of an energy company, it is vital that the inclusion of Hispanics in energy take a bigger and larger role. It is critical more than ever. The contributions can be the catalyst for agility, innovation, and equity. It will be through a collective diversity that we can close the digital divide and ensure that fruits of technology are within everyone's reach. In closing, let's unite in our efforts to transform the energy sector into a beacon of innovation, exclusivity, and equity. Together, the leaderships and talents of all communities, especially the Hispanic colleagues who are in this room, we can lay a foundation for a sustainable and prosperous future for all of us. I want to thank you again. I know I stood before a break. I want to thank you for your commitment, for all of you who are representing different organizations today. Together, we will light the path for future generations to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, we still have time for a short break. Our next speaker will start at 3:45 p.m. It is now 3:20. So please get up, stretch, do your downward dogs or cat-cow, whatever you want to do to feel better. We'll be back at 3:45. Thank you.
States Hispanic leadership Hi there. I wanted to say hi. My name's Ana Figueroa. I used to be Ana Figueroa. It's now Anna Ortega, but I was a student of your wife at East Chicago Central High School.
Ana Ortega?
Well, it's now Ana Ortega, pero antes era Ana Figueroa. Yeah, when I was her high school student, but she was one of the most memorable teachers that I've ever had. Yes.
Got it. I got it.
Is she doing good?
Yes.
Okay, if we can please have everyone make their way back to their seats, please. We're getting ready to resume the program. If you can all please quickly grab your last refreshments and head back to your seats. Okay, everyone, fantastic. We have our next speaker making her way to the stage. We're getting ready to start. Thank you.
Can everybody please take their seats? We're going to reconvene, and the senator is on a time limit here.
Can we have everyone's attention, please? We are now restarting the program.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Sylvia Aldana. I'm with the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and on behalf of our office here in Washington, D.C., I'd like to welcome all of you. It's great to see, as Senator Padilla said earlier this afternoon, that we've outgrown the auditorium where we were last year. Jose, wherever you are, I want to say thank you so much for your leadership and for growing HIE. I have to say, I have to put in a plug for PG&E because we were early supporters of the organization, and I think that you're growing the organization and providing a lot of opportunities by creating awareness and educating our community about public policy issues that we need to be engaged on. So with that, let me get to the business at hand of introducing the junior senator from the great state of Nuevo Mexico, somebody I've had the great fortune to know since he came into the Congress on the House side initially, and of course now on the Senate side. He's one of my favorite people because he really likes to do the deep dive and get into the weeds on all things energy. And he's just been an amazing leader for us in Congress. I know that he has some remarks that he'd like to make that will be very important for all of us, and I'd like to ask all of you to join me in welcoming Senator Ben Ray Lujan.
Thank you, Sylvia. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, the caffeine is kicking in. That's good. It's good to see you all here. And to everyone that's participating from their homes or from their businesses as well. Jose shares with me that there's over 2,000 people participating today across the country. And I want to commend every one of you. Now, those of you that showed up, you get a little special accolade, though, because it's not easy traveling across the country, leaving your businesses, your responsibilities, your families, to be able to gather like this. But it's so critically important. And so I commend all of you for making this a priority to come together, to network, to raise issues, to make things better, to raise challenges that you have faced, and looking at other opportunities as well. This is that laboratory where we can test ideas, re-examine ideas, re-examine policy, and find a better way to get there. And I'm sure that Senator Padilla may have shared with you already. I'm the short Latino in the Senate, by the way, so I don't like to show up on the stage with Alex because people just leave me out of the frame. So I appreciate you separating the two of us with that being said. Now, Sylvia, thank you so much for your kind words and your friendship and your introduction as well. And Jose, for what you have been building, now 11 years in coming together in strengthening opportunities and getting the attention of more decision makers at the Department of Energy, at investor-owned utilities across the country, electric cooperatives, all the contractors, and exploration and shipping and all aspects associated with energy. I truly applaud all of you. And I'm reminded that when we gather today, this is not just about electrons flowing and being delivered. This is about all aspects of services required through the Department of Energy. And I'm looking around to see who's going to be the first prime contractor at one of our national labs that's in this room, because, not to put pressure, Jose, that's when we will know that there's been success through the Department of Energy, through the national labs, when the prime contractors are the very people that are sitting in this room or watching on a peripheral, wherever they may be, because that's where the revenue is generated, as we all know. Decisions that are made every day that impact our safety across the globe, across America, looking at innovative ways and exploration that we depend on. The work that our national labs do that we often don't know about unless we're privileged to sit in a skiff and we find out whose lives are being saved or changed because of the innovative scientists and physicists and engineers and laborers and everyone that's in that room that is contributing to what may be happening. From a Department of Energy perspective, I often describe our national labs as these institutions that are in places where bad things are happening. Not that the Department of Energy is causing them per se, but because the Department of Energy is trying to identify what is happening and we want to make it better. When something good is happening in the world, someone from one of our national labs is also present from the Department of Energy, contributing to whatever may be occurring as well. As a former utility commissioner, we were the Public Regulation Commission in New Mexico. That was my life and responsibility before coming to Congress. Those of you that have responsibilities in that space, the PG&Es of the world, Public Service Company of New Mexico, those of you from Texas that learn how to live in ERCOT, that doesn't want to play with the rest of the country, God bless you as well. But it's incredible to me the nuances that you have to look at through these power pools and through these exchanges and what's happening, whether it's renewables coming on board or gas lines getting frozen because the technology associated with removing water didn't work at a time when a climate episode hit and people were left without power. You're all on the front lines in the decisions that are being made every day, identifying venues, the human resource aspect of all of these responsibilities, the hiring, the designs, the architects, the engineers associated with these designs. It's in every one of these spaces that we must see growth. Now, as one of only 4 Democratic Hispanics in the Senate, one of only 6 Latinos in the U.S. Senate, we need to grow these numbers because it's not keeping up with the population. And so for those of you that have not considered public service, I ask why not? Because the decision, the future of others that have been fighting to get where you are, to grow success. Now, I appreciate the priority coming out of the Biden administration through the Department of Energy in this particular space. And we've seen over 11 years, this has grown. But it will only grow more if you choose to participate and challenge the norms. Just because something is done a certain way today does not mean that it's the most effective and efficient way for it to be done. If there's a question associated with contracts being awarded across the country that is not fair, raise it. Seek support from others. Let's get answers to those questions. Let's find out what's needed to be able to change the paradigm in how we're going to be able to work together. I'll do my part. I'll continue to raise concerns that I have to presidents with diversity challenges that have existed, and every president that I've had the honor of working with in the House and now in the Senate, whether it was President Barack Obama or President Trump and now President Biden. In the same way, when I'm sitting down with executives and I ask about who's in the room making decisions, who's being empowered, what contracts are being delivered, and what's happening on the frontline hiring, but also what's happening in the management. There has to be success at every level. Now, I didn't go to MIT like Alex, so I'm having to play catch up in many, many areas. But the beauty of that story is I'm now one of 100 members in the United States Senate. And so in the same rooms that my colleagues that went to some of the most elite institutions in America attended, or some of the most successful businesses that they moved, this New Mexican that grew up on a small farm that attended a D2 little school, New Mexico Highlands University, now has a seat at the same table. We get to challenge the paradigms of those decisions, of the inclusion of what's happening with these policies. Secretary Granholm, I believe, will be here tomorrow. The questions that we're looking to seek and to ask, if you don't get an answer to them, share them with me. Because one of the honors that I have is I get those secretaries on a panel in front of a dais, and I get to ask them all the questions that are pertinent to our communities. And if we don't get to them, I submit more in writing, and they have to respond. There's a way for us to get answers to these questions, but let's grow this family. Let's grow our ability to learn with each other's support, objections, but participation is absolutely necessary. And that's what I want to commend and applaud each and every one of you here today. Now, one of the areas that I'm very proud that I've been able to lead through the Department of Energy at our national labs is I led an effort with some of our colleagues, Senator Durbin and Senator Risch and Senator Blackburn, to reestablish the United States Senate National Labs Caucus. There's a program, a similar caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives that I was proud to work on there as well, but it seemed to escape the attention of our colleagues in the Senate. The reason for this is, for those of you that work directly with the Department of Energy and our national labs per se, is to ensure that that voice is front and center. One example that I will share with you is during the debate about chips and sciences, many of you are familiar with this legislation that reinvested in America to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to American soils, to onshore and to nearshore, understanding the dynamics that we saw happening during COVID around the world with shipping and transportation constraints, or what was happening in other countries. Well, during that debate, and this is not to push against other agencies as well, but that funding was all going to go to another entity. The authorization of over $100 billion was going to go to another entity to say, well, we need you to do more in the area of supercomputing and in bio and in artificial intelligence and in all of these spaces. Well, it turns out the Department of Energy already does all this work. And having the honor of representing 2 national labs, 2 NNSA facilities in New Mexico, I did not want to see the labs left out. And this was a piece of legislation, as you know, that was being led by Chuck Schumer, who is the majority leader of the United States Senate. As a freshman junior member, I know better than to tinker with the majority leader's legislation. And I had a chance to visit with Leader Schumer, and I asked him why the national labs were being left out of this authorization to do the work that the labs already do. And he asked me a very astute question, and he said, how many votes do you have? And I shared with Leader Schumer, well, sir, this is your legislation. I've not gone to count votes. I don't want to do anything to take from your idea here. He said, well, let's see how many votes you can find and come back and talk to me. I think at the time we were asking for, I don't know, $15 billion, a lot of money, right? So I called a Republican colleague from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. I said, Marsha, the labs are left out here. There's several of us that represent national labs. What can we do to fight to ensure that they will also participate in this new phase in our economy across America and our competitiveness? So we got to work. And it turns out there's a lot of us that represent national labs in the country. So just keep in mind basic arithmetic as I'm telling you this. 100 senators. You need 51 on some days, you need 60 on other days, and in my opinion, it depends on what mood someone's in with how many votes you need. So after talking to all my colleagues and earning support, it turned out there was a lot of support. So I went back to visit with Leader Schumer, and I shared with him, well, originally we were asking for $15 billion. And he said, yeah, well, how many votes do you have? I said, well, Chuck, I didn't say Leader, Chuck, there's a lot of support for our national labs out there. And he goes, yeah? I said, we want half the money. I said, what do you mean you want half the money? I thought you were asking for 15 of the $105 billion. I said, I've got a lot of votes. And we have enough votes to take half the money. To which we negotiated, and he said, I'll find a place for $18 billion. That doesn't happen unless the question is asked, unless you seek support. You identify that support across the country, across your colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, working together, common cause, and going to approach leadership where you know what you have brought to the table. And that's one of the lessons that I'll suggest that more of us need to embrace when we're working with county commissions and school boards and city councils and state legislatures. It's the power of basic arithmetic to secure the votes to be able to get something accomplished. So when you go to that negotiating table, whether there is a willingness to do it voluntarily or you ask for a vote, you'll be able to secure that victory. And that's a lesson that I've learned from other Latino leaders who oftentimes when they came to Capitol Hill as U.S. representatives, wearing their very best for a gala of some sort, getting lost in the halls of Congress and finding themselves in a basement where they were told, "You're late, go get that tray and take the food to that room." Times have changed a little bit. And it's up to each and every one of you to continue to make progress and force those uncomfortable conversations and questions around the room when things are not fair. But I'm optimistic with what you are already achieving, with how you've changed and turned the content of those conversations and even the contracts as I look at them on a monthly basis to see what's happening around the world with diversity. Keep pushing, keep working together. Let's find ways to make things better and unleash the ingenuity in each and every one of your businesses so that everyone does better. It's that simple, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me share a few words with you.
See her. Right. Got my official notes here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Our next session is State of Hispanics participating in hydrogen hubs. And we've heard a lot about hydrogen. And Melissa here is going to tell us a lot more about hydrogen and why that's important. So I'm going to hand over the mic, and people can introduce themselves, and then I think you have a presentation.
Yep.
So thank you for coming.
Yeah, happy to be here. So I'm Melissa Climbera. Is this on? There we go. I'm Melissa Climbera. I'm the Director for Portfolio Strategy in the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, and in a little bit I'll go through a little bit of an overview of the hydrogen hubs, and then we'll have a conversation among the panel and online with some of the hub leaders to talk about the involvement of the Hispanic community in executing on the hubs.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. So my name is Neil Banwart, and I'm the Chief Integration Officer for the Midwest Alliance for Clean Hydrogen, or the MACH2 hub. We're one of the 7 hubs that have been selected to enter into negotiations with the DOE. So really excited to be on the panel today. Thank you for the invitation.
Hi everyone, Christine Wiley. So I'm with GTI Energy. I head up our low carbon energy business, which includes all of our hydrogen work. We are also the lead and administrator for High Velocity, which was mentioned by Exxon earlier today, one of the hydrogen hubs in the Gulf Coast. And then we're also participating in MACH2, as well as ARCH2 in the Appalachian region. So a lot to talk about, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here today.
Okay, and I think we have Angelina online.
Yes, hi everyone, Angelina Galitova, and I'm the CEO of ARCHES, the Alliance for Clean Renewable Hydrogen Energy Systems, the hydrogen hub in California. Happy to join you all remotely.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to give, I know we're a little bit behind on time, I'll try to give a nice 15-minute overview orientation of the hubs, although these folks are knee-deep in it, so they probably don't need to hear this presentation, but for the rest of the audience, hopefully this is a helpful kind of orientation. If you go to the next slide, that is on OSED's mission. For those of you that don't know about this new Office of Clean Energy demonstrations, we were stood up about 2 years ago with bill and IRA funding. So we have about $27 billion. And OSED's mission is to really fill this gap. I've been at DOE nearly 20 years now, hard to believe. Where I worked on the applied R&D side of DOE, and there was this huge gap between what we were able to fund and the loan programs office. And so OSED is really filling this big gap where there's multiple valleys of death to go from first of a kind to next of a kind. And so we're a 50-50 basically equity partner in building out these first-of-a-kind large-scale demonstrations. And if you go to the next slide on OSED's scope, that just gives you a quick snapshot of the types of programs that Congress has funded, which we highly appreciate. And you can see that we have $8 billion in the regional hydrogen hubs, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. Next slide. So I think you all are aware that nearly over a year ago, we competed a solicitation to create regional hydrogen hubs based on the bipartisan infrastructure bill language. We selected 7 hubs in October for $7 billion and a much larger set of cost share coming from the private sector, which is really exciting to see. We also stood up, when we were originally planning out this hydrogen hub program, we knew that it was important not only to be an investor in the capital assets of the production facilities, but we knew that, you know, given the history of a lot of different large-scale production, I worked in the biofuels area, the challenge is often in the offtake agreement, and getting long-term offtake is typically a huge challenge to reaching final investment decision. And so we set about $1 billion aside for a new, what we're calling a demand side program. And so it's really supposed to support the success of the hubs in reaching final investment decision and creating some revenue assurancy on the offtake side. So we're really excited to see that. We know it's filling a critical gap. And we're really excited that Energy Futures Institute, former Secretary Moniz's shop, is leading that effort and working closely with the hubs over the next couple months to help design the different mechanisms to support the variety of hydrogen production and use markets and really make up that willingness to pay cost gap that we know is going to be a challenge in standing up this new clean regional hydrogen hubs across the United States. So the next slide is just a map of what is a regional clean hydrogen hub. I think most of you probably know this already, but it's really about the production, storage, and end-use markets. And there's a variety of pathways which you can make hydrogen. There's a whole color coding system involved, which people have strong opinions about, so I won't go into that. But it's really, this is an amazing investment to see DOE make in actually building out this infrastructure for clean, renewable hydrogen, clean hydrogen, which covers nuclear, renewables, and fossil fuels with carbon capture. So the next slide is a map of the United States that shows the 7 hubs. We're really excited about the regional diversity of the hubs, and these hubs are currently in negotiations right now, so we don't have a lot more details to share at this point in time. This is what's in their proposal that we selected them for, and they're actively in negotiations right now. If you go to the next slide, I mentioned this already, this has been an unprecedented investment in hydrogen. I think under the Bush administration, they made a commitment for $3 billion in hydrogen, and that sort of got a lot going. And it's great to see this level of investment now to really get at deep decarbonization in our economy. Hydrogen is one of the tools in our toolbox to do that. These hydrogen hubs have the capacity to produce approximately 3 million metric tons of hydrogen per year. So we're really excited about that. I think our goal in the National Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap is 10 million metric tons by 2030. And so this is really getting us on that path to achieve that goal. And what we're here to talk a little bit more about today is really seeing those tangible benefits for Americans. We want to dig in on how specifically these hubs can support Hispanics in America. But this is the first time that I've really seen in my experience at the Department of Energy for us to really think about the community benefits and how benefits will flow to the different communities where these are located. And that is really dedicated jobs, creating those jobs, creating the environmental benefits, and lasting benefits in the community. Next slide. So just a quick kind of primer on the way that OSED approaches large projects. So we had the application phase, which we know was very painful. Thank you for suffering through that. That included in-person interviews, so you made it. And now we're going through probably what feels like another painful experience in negotiating a large award with the Department of Energy, so thank you for suffering through that. But eventually, these projects will be in a multi-phase step, with phase 1 really being the detailed planning phase, and then everyone's favorite phase, phase 2, which is NEPA, which I'm sure people are really excited about getting into, as well as doing other final engineering design and reaching that final investment decision that I talked about earlier, and then going into construction in phase 3 and then operations in phase 4. So this is really a multi-year effort. There's a lot of things that can happen between now and construction, which the hub leaders will be dealing with, and we're in it with them along the way. And this is just a quick overview of kind of that phase process where we try to have discrete budget periods, try to manage risks, and have go, no-go decisions along the way for if these projects should continue, especially with things that might play out with cost economics. The next slide is going a little bit deeper into community benefits in the OSED projects. The community benefits plans had 4 parts to them: community and labor engagement, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, investment in the American workforce, and Justice 40 initiative. And so all the applications that we received from the hydrogen hubs needed to have a community benefits plan that detailed out how the hubs were going to impact the community in these areas. And these will be measured throughout the various phases of the hub, which I covered in the previous slide. The next slide just quickly shows the different DOE offices involved in the hubs. The Office of Clean Energy Demonstration is the leading role for executing on the hubs, but we worked very closely with the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity and the Office of Energy Jobs as we were developing the community benefits approach. We worked very closely also too with the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology Office that has done decades and decades and decades of investments in R&D to get us to this point, as well as the Office of Fossil and Carbon Management and the Nuclear Energy Office as well, that's not here, to help inform the design of the funding opportunity and in the oversight and execution of the hubs. The next slide is a quick overview of other things happening in addition to OSED investments, a whole of government approach to clean energy. I mentioned earlier the U.S. National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap that sort of set specific goals for how much hydrogen we want to produce. In addition to that, we released about a year ago the Clean Hydrogen Pathway to Commercial Liftoff Report, and that was sort of a seminal report to create a vision in line with the private sector of what they need to believe in order to invest or bring more investable dollars to the table for creating the hydrogen hubs across the United States. And $8 billion sounds like a lot of money, but we know that we need to be catalytic in the investments that we're making at the Department of Energy. And the Liftoff Report and the National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap will hopefully be a good plan to get us there. And we at OSED are dedicated to sharing sort of progress measures along the way and insights, not only in community benefits, but in other areas like the progress that we're making in production, in costs, and other areas to show the progress that we're making in executing on the hubs. We know that the IRA tax incentive is very top of mind for everyone. We could talk about that later. I think comments were due actually yesterday. So we will be working closely with Treasury to kind of inform where they finally land on the hydrogen 45B tax credit. Next slide. So I think I might end on this last slide on key messages of the Clean Hydrogen Liftoff Report. I just mentioned already the production tax credit is going to be really critical for understanding the investability of some of the pathways involved in the hubs. And so we're happy that you hopefully provided comments on that. The hubs, creating this sort of open access infrastructure, I think is going to be important to unlocking cases for where hydrogen production and offtake that we talked about earlier, in order to build out a larger infrastructure across the United States. We know that there are many cases for industrial and chemical end use cases, and heavy duty transportation are going to be important to sort of gain that foothold in certain markets. And we really, and this again is ringing back to the demand side program, we know that the hubs are going to need kind of long-term offtakes or merchant markets to really stand the test of time, and we're hoping that demand side program is a way to help support the hubs in achieving those goals. So the next few slides I had, I'll skip over because I think we're running late on time, and I really want to dig into hearing more from the hubs and hopefully not complaining too much about the process we put you through to this point, but talking more about, you know, how can we be more thoughtful about, you know, the realizing more of these benefits in the hubs for Hispanic communities that are going to be involved, and how we should be thinking about that more in these efforts going forward.
Perfect. I think that was a great setup, a great introduction. And I think what we're going to do next is we're going to give a brief snapshot of our individual hubs. So I'll attempt to summarize our 900-page application in just a couple of minutes here. But you know, every hub applicant really had to paint a picture of the entire hydrogen value chain, from the production to the storage and transportation of the molecules to the end use. And so how did we do that at Mach 2? Well, we have production in 3 different states, 3 different ways to produce the hydrogen molecules. 2 of those production methods use electrolysis. And we touched on this briefly, the colors of the hydrogen rainbow. Okay, so if you take water, H2O, and you separate the hydrogen from the oxygen via an electrolyzer, then it's either green hydrogen if you use renewable energy, or it's pink hydrogen if you use nuclear energy. And so in our hub, we actually have both. We have pink hydrogen, and that project is led by Constellation. I know we heard from Constellation earlier, but they envision using nuclear power to power an electrolyzer in Illinois to generate clean hydrogen. We also have a green hydrogen production project, again, electrolysis, using renewable power, primarily wind power, to separate, again, the hydrogen from the oxygen. And that is led by Invenergy and Air Liquide. And then our third production project is actually a blue hydrogen project led by BP. And blue hydrogen is a little bit different form or technology. And what you do is you take natural gas and you do a reformation process. You isolate the hydrogen, but then you capture carbon and you sequester that. And so then that's blue hydrogen. So we actually have all 3 colors in our hydrogen hub. In terms of offtake, so there's a couple of different industries that we're targeting. Heavy industries such as steel, concrete, and glass. Those are, 20 to 25% of domestic steel is produced in our region, and so we want to keep those jobs in our region. We want to keep the domestic steel production, but we want to increase or decrease the carbon intensity of that process, and so we can introduce clean hydrogen to that. Ammonia is another offtake. So we're in the breadbasket of the U.S., and so we're excited about green ammonia as a potential offtake. And then with respect to transportation, we think a lot about heavy-duty, long-haul trucking, a sector that's harder to electrify, but we think hydrogen fuel cell technology does make sense there. And so we have efforts to decarbonize that sector as well. But it's not just heavy-duty trucking. We also see opportunities in aviation with sustainable aviation fuel, longer-term, actually airplanes that are powered by fuel cells, with marine as well. Instead of the traditional diesel engine, a fuel cell for a marine vessel. And then the last offtake I'll touch on is the rail. So a locomotive instead of a diesel engine or diesel power using fuel cells as well. So again, we've got a lot of ambitious plans to produce the hydrogen, a lot of plans to offtake. We're just in the negotiation process right now. We're just getting started with the DOE. Again, we'll touch on the community benefits a little more, but I just wanted to give a brief snapshot of Mach 2. So.
Great. Awesome overview. Probably will have some very similar characteristics when I talk about high velocity, but before I do that, I just wanted to say I have really enjoyed this event, and that I really enjoyed hearing from the Hispanic energy leaders about their story and really where they came from. I'm not Hispanic, but I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants, and so I can relate, and the story resonates very well with me, and I just love the mission of being able to advance diversity in leadership positions, not just in energy, but in all decision-making positions. So, congratulations to HIE for building such a thoughtful and supportive community. So I'm going to talk a little bit about high velocity. So it is focused in Texas, in the Houston area, along the Gulf Coast. We also have some projects located in Louisiana. Texas actually is the largest producer of hydrogen within the U.S. We have about 1/3 of the hydrogen production that currently happens in the U.S. A lot of that is because along the Gulf Coast, there's a lot of existing refineries and petrochemical facilities that utilize hydrogen either for the refining process or for producing ammonia, for example, for fertilizer. So we have an existing energy infrastructure that we can utilize, which is wonderful. We have a lot of large energy core companies that are a part of the high velocity hub. So we have companies companies like AES, Chevron, Exxon, who you heard from earlier today. Sempra Infrastructure is a part of it as well, Mitsubishi, and Ørsted, and Air Liquide. So it really represents kind of that broad chain across the energy value chain, from your traditional oil and gas to the big renewables like Ørsted and AES, and then even kind of that, midstream infrastructure, large pipelines that you see being built out by Sempra. Very similar to the Mach 2 hub, we also have a diversity in terms of the hydrogen production pathways that we're utilizing. So the nice thing about Texas, obviously, is we have an abundant supply of natural gas that we can use. You couple that with methods that are able to capture that CO2 from the process of producing hydrogen, so that you can get that low carbon clean hydrogen. And then maybe what a lot of people may not know is actually in West Texas, we have like a very large supply of wind. So not only are we going to be able to utilize the renewable electrons that you would see from wind, but we also have solar integrated with that, as well as a nuclear facility to produce hydrogen through electrolysis. And then kind of that connecting infrastructure through the existing pipelines. There's actually about 1,000 pipelines hydrogen pipelines within Texas. And then for the end use, it really highlights the versatility of hydrogen. So one of the unique things about hydrogen is that you can produce it in many different ways, and you can utilize it in many different ways, kind of similar to how you can utilize natural gas in different types of combustion applications. So we will be using it for kind of the existing applications, such as in refineries and petrochemical. We have industrial use of it. We have the use of hydrogen to be able to produce e-methanol and other sustainable aviation fuels. And then we're also using it very similarly in the Mach 2 hub for transportation. It's very ripe for long-haul transportation, like heavy-duty trucks, and then also for being able to produce green power. So, very similar to how you can use natural gas in like a combined cycle natural gas plant. You can use hydrogen, combust it to create power. So again, really a diverse set of projects, which is key. And maybe I'll leave it there because I want to make sure that we have time for questions, and that you all can hear from Arches as well.
Great. Angelina? Angelina, you want to go next?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Jose Perez, for organizing such a fabulous event. It's always good to join Hispanics in Energy and actually participate in these very educational, informative, and inclusive events. And thank you, DOE and OSED, for creating the Hydrogen Hub initiative. It's very exciting to be a part, alongside Neil and Christine, to talk about how we are going to be working together to ensure that hydrogen succeeds on all levels, and all seven hydrogen hubs successfully integrate. Yes, we did comment on 45V. Excited to talk about that later if we have time. Very important to also work on the demand side program to ensure that we have transparency, longevity, and consistency as we roll out the hydrogen hub projects, because we need to get steel in the ground and boots in the ground very quickly and ensure that we're all meeting the goals of DOE. Can you see my slides okay, everybody? And hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. Going to the next slide. So what is Arches' mission? We created Arches from the very beginning to be an ecosystem approach to the development of hydrogen. It's a public-private partnership to create a sustainable, statewide, renewable, clean hydrogen market ecosystem in California and beyond. Arches utilizes renewable resources to produce hydrogen with the objective to fully decarbonize the regional economy. We were focused right from the very beginning on environmental justice, equity, economic leadership, workforce development, and hydrogen market viability. But what really is strong is our foundational system and our foundational partners. We have over 450 industry partners, and the founders of Arches are all of the UCs, the Universities of California system, along with 2 DOE labs that actually represent one of the largest research institutions in the world. GoBiz through the state of California also joined the initiative, and a foundational partner is labor. So all of the labor unions in California joined this initiative in a proactive mission to ensure that they're ready with the workforce, stand by and create the jobs of the future through hydrogen. Our hub is statewide, it's green and clean, it's stakeholder engaged, and as I said, equity and connected on all levels. We saw it as a system, as I said. So we issued an RFP in California just to find out what was the ecosystem of hydrogen projects in the state. And we got over 100 proposals back, totaling $56 billion in economic opportunity. Out of those 100 proposals, we picked 39 Tier 1 projects that were actually focused on making sure that we could build a successful ecosystem. But we also have 31 projects that are Tier 2 projects throughout the state that actually can slide into a Tier 1 slot at any point in time. They're absolutely viable to go forward, and we're going to be looking for additional funding to ensure that they can successfully be integrated into the system. So if you look at how we are designing our system, we start with production. And our production is renewable electricity that through electrolysis creates hydrogen. We also have some biogenic sources focused on municipal waste and woody biomass, which is basically dealing with wastewater and some of the fire mitigation issues in California as well. On the distribution system, because we wanted to match production, offtake, and distribution to ensure that we could closely match all of the needs to our end-use customers. We have liquid hydrogen fuel cell transport, hopefully with fuel cell trucks. We have buffering storage, not too much to ensure that there's enough storage for the projects to operate. And of course, we have pipelines that are hydrogen pipelines already operating in California with new ones scheduled to be built as well. The three major sectors we focused on initially because they were ready and financially credit-worthy entities that were able to deliver and of course also pay for the offtake of hydrogen was power in terms of centralized power, as Christine mentioned. Certainly that is an option, as well as smaller scale distributed generation on fuel cells. We're focused on transportation, especially heavy duty transportation in terms of trucking, drayage, ports, and transit authorities and buses. And of course, we are focused on ports and ports operation because that is an area where we will be displacing diesel directly by hydrogen, which will have an immediate clean air effect on our communities and the surrounding areas. As you can see here in the slide, we wanted to correlate our production and uptake sites pretty closely within California, and there are some of the pipelines as well. In terms of what we see as a potential for the framework of the hub, which is 2030 and 2032, as you saw Melissa pointed out in her slides, the stages of where stage 3 and stage 4 are project build out by 2030 and operating for 2 years in 2032. So currently we're starting with about 6,800 metric tons per year. By 2030, we expect to be 190,000 metric tons per year. And our areas of application are going to be broader than just the transportation sector, which is where we start off from, branching into the power sector and into ports as well. And in order to meet our goal of complete carbon-free across the economy by 2045, we actually need to accelerate the production of clean hydrogen to 17 million metric tons per year, which is very, very important for us. The next slide, I know we're going to be talking about community benefits, focus on our community benefit initiative, which we're very proud of. We've already issued a pathway for community benefits on our website that people are welcome to download and look at. And we're very proud of our plan. Arches is committed to partnering with communities in the development of the hydrogen energy ecosystem. Our plans will lead to improved environmental health, increased availability of high-quality, family-sustaining green jobs, and of course, a hydrogen market aligned with California's needs. We work with project partners, we work with community liaisons. In fact, we have a working group that started before we even submitted our application to DOE that meets every 2 weeks with community organizations. Anybody can join that meeting, and we actually discuss issues that are near and dear to the heart of environmental communities, of frontline communities, of EJ, and the agenda is driven by topics that the communities want to discuss. We anticipate this will become much deeper as we develop the projects and we actually start engaging with real fence line communities around the projects as well. We have an idea of creating a community benefits monitoring team that is actually going to be an independent third-party entity that reports directly to the board that's going to be responsible for making sure that the community scorecards, the community benefits plans in whatever form they take with the individual communities around the projects are actually delivered. And we were very serious about making sure that that community benefits monitoring team is going to be empowered and enabled to do the job that they need to do. How did we set up our community benefits plan? One project of our project budget, so all the total project budgets within Arches, are going to dedicate that funding to community benefits programs directly. That totals to $229 million in workforce development funding and over $150 million in direct community benefits projects for a total of $380 million being invested into our communities to help demonstrate measurable results and benefits to each and individual one of them. So we look at community benefits as two sides of the same coin. One is community-directed benefits that actually result in environmental benefits to the community in terms of improved air quality and an improved environment, improved water resources. And the other one is a workforce development or an economic development plan, because we feel that that is an integrated aspect of every project that we are going to be launching on the Arches. And of course, the community benefits team ensuring that we have measured results as we move forward. As you can see behind me on the screen, and you can see we're very proud of our projects, because when we looked at it in kind of the Andy Warhol rendition, we looked at the Arches website, or the Arches hub sites. We superimposed that map with disadvantaged communities, with air pollution and with low income, and discovered that they coincide quite nicely together. And that basically framed our community benefits plans overall. So in terms of healthcare savings and economic value of increased health benefits per year, the Arches projects, if implemented, those 39 that we submitted to the DOE, will result in $2.95 billion in savings to the state every single year. We're looking at over 200,000 new jobs. We're looking at fewer hospitalizations. We're looking at particulates and emissions and toxins reductions. And of course, as I said, the $380 million in benefits. This is the community benefits engagement side. That is the one side of the coin. As I said, community benefits totaling 1% of the project budget. The independent community benefits monitoring team to ensure accountability, the $150 million direct in community benefits governed by the individual communities on the projects, whether they want a filtration system or kindergarten or a water purification system. That's going to be up to the community, whether they want a legally binding community benefits plan or not. Depends on what the community would want. Some communities have expressed a very strong preference for not having a legally binding community benefits plan, because they want the flexibility to be able to adjust that as the project develops and possibly changes as well. And then we're going to have a community benefits scorecard for every project. And as I said, we have the weekly and bi-weekly community benefits meetings too, and we have other working groups as well. The other side of the coin, of course, is the labor, and our partnership with labor is also something that we're extremely proud of and work closely to ensure that we have the training and the workforce development that is needed to ensure that we can be successful. An opportunity, of course, to partner with 170 Hispanic educational institutions in California. And Jose Perez always likes to remind me, California is 40% Hispanic. You need to ensure you have representation. And of course, we want to have representation of all of our communities and look forward to connecting with over the 5 million graduates of the Hispanic Institutes for Education to ensure that they're integrated not only into our community colleges, into the state schools, into the UC system, but also into the training institutes run by our labor partners. And we want to ensure that we have a certification and a training program that is actually transferable not only throughout California, but throughout the West and maybe even nationally as we standardize those training programs. So we've got a very comprehensive workforce development plan and training with all of our groups, and we're expecting over 220,000 new green family supporting jobs. So the hydrogen hubs are actually an economic engine for our state, and not only do they allow us to integrate more renewables into the grid safely, and with the excess renewables and excess generation that we see as a result of more and more renewables coming on the grid. California has over 60% of carbon-free energy on the grid right now. We're pushing to get to 100%. As we do that and we integrate more solar and wind and other variable resources, there'll be more curtailment. So we need sinks to be able to absorb that excess energy. Hydrogen is perfectly situated to do that. And we expect that all of our projects and technologies that we incorporate as a result of the hub, that they'll be flexible to meet the changing grid needs, so you're able to ramp up and ramp down depending on what the grid conditions are. So it's a super exciting opportunity, and we are very, very happy to be a part of the Hydrogen Hub family with OSEV and the DOE, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina. That was a great overview of Arches. So now we're going to launch into a little bit of panel discussion to dive in a little bit more deeply on specifically, we know that the hubs are a lot of time and a lot of money to apply in, and it may not currently reflect all of the types of different diversity that we can have over the time of the various phases of the hubs. And so we want to get your input or how you're thinking about how can Hispanic businesses over the evolution of the hub be more involved? Like, what are some of the main opportunities that you've been thinking of as hub leaders to continue to engage and expand Hispanic businesses' involvement in the hubs?
Yeah.
Neil?
Perfect. So we did a similar mapping exercise as the Arches Hub, and we identified in our 3-state region over 1,200 disadvantaged communities, and the population inside those disadvantaged communities is almost 4 million people, right? So how can we best serve the 4 million in disadvantaged communities? Because that's actually where the majority of our projects will be located. And so we've got a couple of different initiatives. In terms of workforce development, we've talked about this a lot. This has been discussed today, but we've committed an 8-figure amount of monies to help workforce development. And what we want to offer is really a wraparound service, so that we're not just providing jobs, which we are in Mach 2, but also the training and the education to prepare the workers to enter into these good, high-paying, clean energy jobs. So this is a wraparound service that we aim to offer at Mach 2. And then the other thing I will mention is we've allocated also a significant amount of money for entrepreneurship. Hydrogen, while it's been used in commercial and industrial use for over 100 years, the use of hydrogen for long-haul trucking, heavy-duty transportation, this is a relatively new use case. And so there is a lot of opportunities for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to participate in this hydrogen economy. And so we have essentially seed money, and we're looking for minority, women-owned businesses, certainly Hispanic business-owned businesses, to come to us with their ideas, and we want to seed those ideas because we need that entrepreneurship to really drive this forward. So those are two areas that I would highlight.
Yeah, so I think you'll see common themes across the hubs in terms of how we're trying to work through the community benefits plan. I think very similar to Arches and also Mach 2, we've dedicated within High Velocity a large budget towards community benefits. So we're proposing over $120 million for our community benefits plan. We'll work directly with different organizations, and we welcome your participation and support there in deploying these types of programs. So very similar to what Neil has already talked about around workforce development. We think that's key. You know, for hydrogen, yes, we've been using it for decades in refineries. We've been using it for decades for ammonia production, but the utilization of it as an energy source is still emerging, and there's training that needs to be done to build out that workforce. We can absolutely use the skilled workforce that we have in Texas because of the large energy assets that we have there, but hydrogen is a different molecule than methane, for example. And so being able to provide the training, whether we're talking about training that's needed to build out dedicated hydrogen pipelines, maybe it's training for how to operate and maintain a large-scale electrolyzer, but those types of programs. I think that, you know, another area that we're really focused on, which we've done, we haven't done yet in high velocity, but we've done this in some of our other projects at GTI where we work with DOE, is actually looking a little bit early on. And I think a comment was made earlier around, like, how do we create the next generation of energy leaders, right? Like, how do we enrich and enhance STEM for the community? And so what we've done at GTI is we created this Energy Transitions Opportunity Program, and that has funding from DOE. But what we do is we actually work with local high schools. We bring them into GTI. We have a large technology facility and lab, and we expose them to all of the new emerging technologies that we're working on in the energy industry. And then we also work with the teachers to familiarize them with some of these emerging technologies, so then they have greater awareness and they can incorporate that into their content at schools. And it's worked out very well. One of the first schools that we targeted was Von Steuben High School, which is, if you're familiar with the Chicago area, it's actually in Northwest Chicago, and it actually has a Hispanic population of over 50%. So we were able to bring those students and expose them to things, you know, that maybe they wouldn't have been exposed to in school. Another example of what we've done at GTI and Mach 2 and some of the other companies who are participating there is also to sponsor students in a Hydrogen Grand Prix, which is essentially, we work with these students to build these remote-controlled cars that are powered by hydrogen fuel cells. I mean, it's fantastic to see their excitement and passion around it. And I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't know anything about hydrogen fuel cells. But, you know, you build that education and you inform them early on, because they're going to be the ones, you know, in a couple decades who are going to be operating these plants and who are really going to drive us through the energy transition. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of a different flavor in terms of, you know, areas and how we can work with the community.
Great. Angelina, do you want to add some things from Arches?
Well, certainly. I mean, this is very exciting. And I was just thinking, my son is actually building a hydrogen-powered solar car right now and managed to get his arms trying to solder some solar cells onto the car yesterday in his high school. So certainly having a pathway, and we're working very closely with our labor partners and with our other partners and project partners to ensure that we have a pipeline, starting with high school, going into community colleges, state schools, and training institutions, to ensure that there is a good opportunity for everyone who wants to participate in the hydrogen ecosystem to have access to a good paying job and to have access to training that is necessary as well in terms of the education. And of course, that coordination is absolutely critical and important. And also, we have a program where, as part of that $300 million that we're going to be investing in communities to ensure that there's access to small businesses as well as minority-owned businesses to participate in the development of the ecosystem around the hydrogen projects that Arches will be building, and that we are going to have a program that allows them to have access to contracting and to jobs as well. It's very important to have that opportunity presented, and it's also very important to be able to open those jobs to communities that traditionally haven't participated in that industry. So we work with Winters Women in Non-Traditional Energy Industries as well. We work with previously incarcerated people. We work with helmets to hard hats, or veterans coming home, to ensure that they have access to those good jobs as well, and there's no one left behind. And as I said, we're certainly looking forward to working with the Hispanic organizations that span throughout the state to ensure that we are accessing everybody that we can in order to provide those benefits that are going to be making our state stronger and making us more resilient and reliable and energy independent across the board.
Great.
maybe if I could just add
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more comment. So I think we talk a lot about technology, right? Because hydrogen is an emerging technology. But when we think about the opportunities to diversify the vendors that we work with or diversify the supply chain, it won't just be the equipment that we need to build these assets, but for these very large projects to be successful in bringing these organizations and partners together, we're going to need legal support, right? We can absolutely expand and have a diverse team in terms of legal support. We need support in terms of doing the market analysis and financial analysis. So I didn't want to just kind of bucket it in terms of, you know, maybe providing equipment or kind of manufacturing capabilities, but really broaden the lens in terms of, you know, ways that the community can participate in the hubs.
Are there any, so, you know, at DOE, we think of our legacy in energy, and we've not always, you know, been there for communities and heard them and got it right. And I think we're trying to get better at that this time around. Have you heard any, you know, specific concerns from the Hispanic community about hydrogen in general? And how is your hub sort of kind of approaching, you know, engaging the Hispanic community in addressing some of their concerns about maybe environmental or the footprint or other things? Would love to hear how you've been approaching that.
I can start there. So I think, you know, one of the concerns that we hear about hydrogen is kind of the safety associated with, you know, hydrogen and the molecules. Typically, you're on a truck, for instance, you're compressing, you know, hydrogen in a tank and things like that. So how safe is that and things like that. And so there's a lot of education, I think, that comes with, you know, the hydrogen rollout of these you know, said hydrogen hubs. And our partners at GTI have been at this education for many years. And so we're going to leverage some of the trainings that, you know, GTI already has done and continue to do those types of trainings regarding, you know, the safety of how do you handle safely and securely, you know, the hydrogen molecules. The other thing I will mention is we have had a series of town halls, open town halls across our 3-state regions. So we had a town hall specific to Illinois, a town hall specific to Indiana, a town hall specific to Michigan. We also had through the OSED a community online town hall meeting, which was very well attended. And that is just the start. We're going to continue to have these you know, forums and dialogues to hear from all the residents of our communities.
Yeah, so maybe building off of some of those comments, I think there is a lot that needs to be done around education and just providing information in general about hydrogen. So is anyone here from Chicago or Indiana? Okay, great. So you may be familiar with, you know, the refineries and like the Whiting facility, which is a part of Mach 2. And oftentimes those types of industrial facilities are located in communities where there is a high percentage of minorities. And so when you have those types of industrial facilities that may be emitting a certain amount of CO2, if you are able to change that process and utilize clean hydrogen, utilize clean electrons, utilize clean molecules, now you're improving the air quality around that facility, around those communities, and the communities gets to benefit from that. So I think being able to provide that information and education to just the broader community so they understand, like, this is why we're investing in hydrogen, right? Because we want to improve the environmental quality around the surrounding communities, I think, and making sure that we're getting that message out so that people can understand is really important.
Angelina, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's always important to ensure that we've got the communities well educated. We were surprised. We did initial focus groups, and we were surprised that we had to do a lot of myth busting in terms of how much water will you use for hydrogen? How safe is hydrogen? Is hydrogen going to explode? But what the focus groups that our partners have also run have discovered is that there's a healthy curiosity and that there's a very strong interest in making sure that hydrogen, especially renewable clean hydrogen, is available to the communities and the frontline communities. They're very interested in making sure that there are jobs and opportunities for their children and for the communities to prosper and have economic development as well. That is certainly a very strong driver for each and every one of them. The clean air aspect of it, there has been some misinformation and some myth busting that all of us collectively do need to work through, but it is not insurmountable. Just like Bach, we've already done meetings and projects throughout California, Northern California, Central California, Southern California, especially when we were rolling out our community benefits plan. Very strong interest in Central California in terms of not only developing renewable energy to support hydrogen and the associated jobs, but also making sure that this is a pathway to decarbonize the agricultural interest. Agricultural sectors. California has a very strong, thriving agricultural community. We are the breadbasket of the West. So decarbonizing that sector with hydrogen is very important. The transit agencies were another aspect that came to us and basically said that they love driving the hydrogen buses, and they're in the process of buying 1,000 additional buses that are hydrogen buses in California. They have a strong mandate to reduce carbon and to go zero emission. So they're all purchasing zero emission vehicles, and the interest towards hydrogen is very strong. We have over 13 transit bus agencies participating in ARCHES, and more want to actually join. So that is certainly an aspect and an area where we're going to be seeing robust growth and an opportunities for communities to get engaged, learn about hydrogen, see that it actually isn't as scary, and there's a certain level of excitement about it. Of course, in California, we also have the benefit of having an infrastructure of fueling stations that also allow not only heavy duty vehicles to be fueled, but also some light duty vehicles such as the Mirai, which is the car I also drive, and actually alerting the communities to the fact that there are hydrogen fueling stations right next door to residential areas is something that they were very excited to learn about. And actually, our working group on community benefits wanted to have not only a briefing on the fueling stations, but they wanted to go and take a tour of the fueling stations and actually touch and feel the technology themselves. And the result was very positive. So winning the hearts and minds is going to be an important initiative that all of us have to undertake together collectively. But because hydrogen has the beauty of being a solution and a vector to enable more renewable energy to be integrated, and actually it is an electric fuel. It's basically a clean molecule that is powered by the sun, or sunshine in a bottle, that we can utilize to decarbonize areas that we couldn't decarbonize otherwise. So yes, we do have some work to do. We do have education, outreach, and a very concentrated effort of making sure that the communities are aware of the benefits and, of course, of the certain aspects of hydrogen that all of us are aware of. But it's not an unsurmountable task, and I think that we're going to get to where we need to with incredible community support in the long run.
Okay, well, we are at time. I want to thank the panel, Angelina, Kristen, Neil, for your time. We're so excited about the hydrogen hubs, and we're really looking forward to all the success that you have, especially in the involvement of the Hispanic community in the success of the hubs. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. This is exciting. I just want to make one clarification before Oman comes up, and that is there's been some questions as to where the reception is after, because it says Hilton the Wharf, and people are confused by that, but it's actually L'Enfant Plaza, even though that's the name of it, which is just a couple of blocks walking down toward L'Enfant Plaza. If there's any questions on that, let us know.
Good evening, everybody. Oh, this mic working? There we go. Good evening, everybody.
I know I'm the last speaker today, so I'm going to keep these comments really brief. My name is Oman Valverde. I'm on the board of HIE, and I kind of head up our California efforts. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm also with the law office of Oman Valverde. We're a small business of one. So I appreciate the love out there for the small business owner. I think I heard one of the panelists just say that their hub needs a lawyer. So yeah, you woke me up. You got my attention. I'll definitely be, talking to you this evening. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of share some of the key takeaways, from today. So many lessons, so many great points. Too many to repeat, but just a couple highlights here. We heard from Senator Padilla, and he asked us to hold our leaders accountable, and I hope that we will do that. On the same vein, Senator Lujan shared his desire to see small businesses grow and to one day become prime contractors themselves. I also hope we can, hold him to that, and that we can all be part of making that happen. From a couple CEOs, we heard about the importance of mentors and leadership to create opportunities, because you can have the skill, you can have the desire, but sometimes, you don't have the opportunities. And it's up to mentors and leaders to open up those opportunities. And from White House, did I get cut off here? From White House advisors, we heard about the importance of getting our communities involved in being part of the solution to the climate crisis. So just kind of, the few points of many lessons that we heard today. And I hope you enjoyed today's event. And, on behalf of HIE and the board, we hope that you will get involved with us, and our mission to grow what we're doing and to help all of you and to create those new leaders of the future in this energy business, which is so huge and has so many opportunities for our communities. So just with that, I just wanted to have a couple of announcements here. So as a reminder, tomorrow the sessions will begin the first panel will be at 8 o'clock. So registration will open up at 8. The first panel will be at 9 a.m. In the morning, because the morning rush with everybody coming into the building here, just remind you, try to get here as early as you can because it might be a little slower as you go through security. And the final thing, yes, in terms of the reception for this evening, we hope you will all come. Everybody's invited. It's going to start at 5:30, and it's just around the corner. There's the Hilton, the Hilton at the wharf. It's really just one block down. If you can walk down the street. If you see, I think it's the International Spy Museum. It's right behind that. So that's it. Thank you for coming. We hope you have a great evening.